Not sure if it's going. Hold on one second, let me check. I'm so bad at this, you'd think I'd start to get better. Is it streaming? Is it? It is! Alright, sweet. Hey everybody, welcome to hell. What feels like hell, but we'll get there. Okay, so, hello. Tonight is the first night of the 2020 Democratic debates. And as you can see, we on this channel are Team Tulsi. Team Bernie and Tulsi to be exact, but tonight, Team Tulsi. She is the only one out of all of these people tonight that is not a corporate hack. Elizabeth Warren is, she's okay. There is some things about her I just can't get over though, and I know it's petty, but I honestly cannot get over how she faked being Native American. I'm not over it. Like, why? Why, though? But, you know, she wants to break up, like, she doesn't like Wall Street, she wants to break up big tech, which is good. But Tulsi is our girl. Tulsi is very anti-war, her entire platform is anti-war. I've been obsessed with her since last year when I saw this article about how she didn't go to the Women's March and instead decided to meet with Trump and talk out the differences and talk issues. And the Women's March and people were very upset about this. And I thought that was hilarious, and I was like, who is this woman? Like, oh, I hope she runs for president. Like, I even tweeted her. You can look back. I tweeted her in, like, 2017, please run for president. And she is, which is awesome. She was let me check the chat. She was a Bernie Sanders delegate. She's the only delegate. She was the only one out of all of these people who were. Everyone else were Hillary Clinton shills. So I find that interesting. And when she dropped out of the DNC, because Bernie dropped out, so she was like, hey, I'm dropping out too, the DNC sent her a message, an email, which was leaked during the, Podesta emails? The email was linked, and the DNC was like, fuck you for not supporting Hillary. Hillary's our girl. She's our choice this year. We had high hopes for you, and you betrayed us for not supporting Hillary. How could you, Tulsi? And I just think that's very funny. The DNC has had a hate boner for Tulsi since. And, yeah, so that's who we are rooting for tonight. We are going to see if she stands out, if she's good at debating. I don't know. I know that her speeches are really good, but who knows how she debates? So, let me just throw on these puppies because I'm blind as shit. So I don't know what's going on now. It looks like it's just some, like, a party beforehand that they're having. But, echo? There's an echo? 1 second, guys. Let's try to figure this out. I'm a boomer. I am a boomer. Did that help? Can you hear me? Does that help? Does that help at all? Is there still a big echo? The fuck? Guys, the fuck? Why would there be an echo? What is happening? 1 second. Guys, I'm so confused. I'm so bad at this. Hold on 1 second. Let's see. Does that help? Is there an echo now? Is it better? Is it better now? Oh, people are saying it's better. Wait. Hold on. Guys, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Hold on 1 second. Boomer time. How could there be? Okay. Someone said use headphones, but I can't use headphones because I want to show you this thing. No! What is happening? How do I turn off an echo? I'm so confused. One second. How do I turn off the echo? Oh no.
Who are you talking to?
They're all saying that there's a huge echo, and I don't know where it would be coming from.
Where's your... Are you playing a video of the stream on an...
Someone said we're good. Wait. Someone said there's no more echo. I didn't do anything, though!
I came in the room. Everything's
fine.
Oh,
Greg came in the room, so now everything's fine. Okay, guys, okay. Alright, so... Someone said it's better. I didn't even touch anything. Okay. So that was weird.
Are you using OBS?
Yes. Okay. Alright guys, so I'm gonna try to play this video. Don't worry, there's gonna be an edited version of this live stream, by the way. So all of this will be gone. But we're gonna try to play the video now, the stream. So tell me how the audio is for that, okay?
Have these candidates done enough to thoughtfully articulate how much they're planning to invest in your futures?
Can you guys hear that? Okay, sweet. Okay. We good. I have to keep checking the chat, though, just in case that happens again, because I don't know what happened.
Their stories of inspiration.
Okay, guys. So, hello again. So, I'm going to be checking super chats in between super chat breaks and stuff. They should be starting in like 20 minutes, so I can read all your shit, and yeah. So while we're just sitting...
You don't want a fan on it, please?
No. So while we're just sitting and like chilling, who are you guys voting for? Who are you rooting for? Who do you like? I want to talk to you guys a little before this all starts. Lot of Yangs. Lot of Yangs. Mike Gravel. Yeah, poor Mike Gravel didn't make it. Mike is cool. Someone said Biden is moderate, so I like him better. Jam Joe mapping. We got a Biden voter in the chat right now. Sir. A lot of people like Tulsi. Okay, cool. A lot of people like Yang, Tulsi. Cool. Some Bernard Brethrens. I am just not looking forward to this because I know that I'm just going to hate it. Should we, like, I don't have any alcohol, but drink every time one of them talks about Trump instead of their own policies and stuff? I feel like a lot of them are gonna do that. I feel like so many of them are just gonna focus on Trump and not even talk about, like, things that they believe in and whatever, and I'm gonna fucking scream. Do you remember in 2016 there was, like, that thing where Trump won? So there was, like, this event on Facebook called Scream Helplessly at the Sky. And all, like, liberals would go into an open field and scream helplessly at the sky. Yeah, I'm gonna do that this year. I'm gonna go scream helplessly at the sky when, Joe Biden wins. All right, let's see what these guys are talking about now. Let's dive into this.
On policy as well. And that's kind of what makes us different from the rest of, our parents' generation. We want specific answers for specific questions, bringing up that point again about how the Democratic Party likes to pander to a lot of those within the African American community, which is a very big reason why Hillary Clinton ended up losing that presidential election. A lot of people are fed up with politicians saying one thing and then doing something else inside of the office.
Right, so they'll have to tell us who they are tonight and bring that substance, and we'll be watching for it. Morgan?
Substance and style. Thank you so much, Dasha, and thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, people are literally begging for substance. They're like, please give us sustenance. Please. Please no just vote for me.
I've been fighting these.
I'm terrified. Like, they were just interviewing a whole bunch of those people, and they were just like, yeah, I really hope that they don't just talk about Trump. It's like, yes, exactly, holy fuck, like, nobody wants to hear that we're all in agreement that Trump did bad things and is bad or whatever. We understand that. We want to hear what you will do for the country, not Orange Man bad, and that is what I'm most worried about. Sustenance. Who is this guy?
Primary in New Hampshire 8 days later, so you can expect however many candidates are left when they get to the starting line in Iowa, there's probably going to be far fewer 8 days later between Iowa and New Hampshire. You can expect
Bro, that is a calendar. He's acting like he's a weatherman.
Who are out in front as well. The next stop, this is a new one on the Democratic, a relatively new one.
I guess that's the joke.
Nevada. Caucuses in Nevada. That's the next one. And then the big one, obviously, the South Carolina primary, the first in the South primary at the end of the month. And, of course, South Carolina, very important because this is the first state where you're going to have a really substantial black population voting. 60%.
Oh, fuck. All right, NBC.
The Democratic electorate in the 2016 South Carolina primary was African American. So a key test there. We're
going to have a lot of black people in this region. Like, what is going on? Fucking MSNBC humor over here. Please clap. Substance. Sustenance 2020. Opinion on Kamala Harris. I do not like Kamala Harris. I think she is doing the same thing, or at least her base is doing the same thing, where they're like, vote for a woman. Vote for a woman. I'm a woman. It's like there was this perfect. Also, Kamala Harris is a fucking cop, and she has like advocated for locking up the parents, the single mothers of children, if the children don't go to school, like if they skip school or whatever. What? She's like such an authoritarian. She's actually really scary. So I do not like Kamala Harris. Also, she's just like a basic establishment person. But anyway, there is this video Maybe I can show it to you. There is this video where there are Bernie supporters protesting the rights for below minimum wage workers. They have the signs up and they're like, oh, like, McDonald's employees deserve rights like unions, blah, blah, blah. And all the Bernie supporters are on one side of the road. And then on the other side of the road, there's the Kamala Harris supporters. And they all have the same t-shirts. They all have the same signs. And while the Bernie supporters are like, yeah, like, minimum wage, like, yeah, help the people, the Kamala supporters are chanting, it's time for a woman in the White House. Like, they're literally chanting at these minimum wage workers, trying to fight to get, like, have a living wage. They're like, it's time for a woman in the White House. It's time for, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it was the epitome of Kamala Harris supporters. The epitome of everything that went wrong in 2016 in one video. Just identity over policy. It's fucking awful. Baby, you want to sit?
How's it going?
Oh, good. It's boring right now. It hasn't started yet.
T minus what till the actual debate starts?
It starts at 9, so what is the time?
So about 12 minutes then.
Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. This is Greg, Armored Skeptic.
So, usually, I try not to say too much about American elections and stuff, but that time it didn't work out so good. So, I think this time I'm just going to make it obvious that there's only one person who I'm supporting right now. And that's Tulsi Gabbard. That's it. 100% of my energy is going to Tulsi right now.
Tulsi and Bernie.
Nope. If they force Tulsi to be the caboose to Bernie, then yeah, fine. Make her the VP. Let's vote Bernie. But that's the only other circumstance I think I would say vote for Bernie.
Why?
I've been through this before. I actually had high hopes for him at the beginning of the 2016 campaign, but there were a few things that he did that showed that he didn't actually have, like, literally the character to be the president.
He's been at this shit for like 40 years.
Right, so he should know not to let some random protester hijack his speech when there's hundreds of people waiting there to listen to you who probably traveled a good deal to come listen to you, and then they didn't get to hear you speak a word because you let your platform go to some random person who completely hijacked it.
He was being a nice man.
We don't want a president that's a nice man.
Yes, we do.
No, because sometimes the president has to be able to put their foot down.
He will be.
You
able
think
to put
Clinton would have been
like
a nice woman?
He will go like this in the face of our enemies.
Like, you think Clinton would have been a nice woman? Being nice is not what
No,
it
because
takes.
she's a demon. But listen, Bernie would go. Bernie would be like,
He would
let me be clear.
Literally finger wag all
Let me be clear.
the U.S.'s problems
Yeah,
away.
like, Russia, let me be clear. And then Vladimir Putin would be like,
yeah, oh, you know what? You're
oh,
absolutely
shit.
right.
Like,
Putin would have
Saudi
just...
Arabia.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. And then, like, fuck, that would solve all of our problems. So I don't know what you're on about. He calls me a communist.
So while I jokingly make fun of her for her socialist positions, but the truth is that
I don't have socialist.
No, you do actually. But
my god.
It's a joke. Listen, it's a joke. I'm defending you.
Oh, okay.
If you let me speak. Because I come from Canada and we have all the social programs that she wants. And Bernie Sanders, until Tulsi Gabbard came along, Bernie Sanders was the only candidate that was asking for all of them. Now, I think he goes a little too far with wanting to cancel the student debt. It's like 1.2 trillion or like 2 point something. It's a lot. It's over $1 trillion. So that's literally a leg that your economy is standing on. You can't just remove it. But I agree with him that the student debt thing is a problem. That the whole university system has been turned into a way to turn people into debt slaves before they're smart enough to understand that they're giving themselves more debt that they can never pay off.
Listen, kids.
And the fact that the job market doesn't have enough positions for these people, so it's so competitive to the point where I know even here in Kingston at Queen's University, they only allow so many medical students in every year to get their masters, for example. Well, the kids are like literally ripping pages out of library books and shit because that's what it's turned into. It's turned into barbarism. So either you've put yourself under so much debt you'll never pay it off, or you become that evil asshole that edged everyone else out so you could get that 1-year residency term. You have to understand the medical field to know everything I just said.
Okay.
Oh, hey, Stash.
Listen. It's not a socialist policies to want free healthcare.
No, I mean, yeah,
No,
free healthcare is a socialist.
Taxing 1%.
Well, it's a socialist program, though. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you want socialism.
That word scares the boomers.
What
We
your
have
is
to
your
say-
audience boomers?
There's some of them. We have to say
Hi,
Nordic.
boomers.
We have to say Nordic capitalism.
No, you don't want
Do
to
not-
associate it with Canada. Canada, as I've
Yeah,
said,
no, not
is literally a punchline to the Americans.
It is. Okay, so he's a fucking leaf, by the way. He's Canadian. If we didn't establish that. My beautiful leaf. And so we don't want leaf opinions in here. No, no. So he'll say some things, but ignore him because he's not American.
Don't ignore me. That's the exact opposite of what I said. I said last time I didn't say enough. This time I think I need to make it clear. Vote for Tulsi or burn your country to the ground!
Okay, anyway. So I think they're almost starting, so let's... Okay.
I love you.
You're fine. Thanks for that.
Call me if you need me.
Okay. That was Armored Skeptic, everybody. Just a big-brained genius. What is happening? Do you see this
Shift
commercial? They're
just got real. But GoDaddy can
Why
help
was there
keep
just
your
moaning
business
on my screen?
agile. Go to GoDaddy.ca to start for free.
Officials testifying.
NBC News gets an exclusive look inside.
Live here at the nation's capital.
There's now an open investigation.
Blockbuster new reporting today on this.
This is the deadliest school shooting.
The Supreme Court upheld the revised version.
Well, this new report comes amid a staggering amount of news.
Breaking news tonight exclusively here.
NBC News was first out with this scoop
It's been
today.
an extraordinary night watching this develop. So, a lot to talk about.
Here we go, guys. Can you hear this?
The first Democratic presidential debate is just minutes away as viewers across the United States tune in to watch these 10 Democratic contenders discuss some of the most important issues facing the country. Michael, Zerlina, Alex are all back with us here in the studio. So, final thoughts, Alex. Is there anyone tonight who you think might be able to steal Elizabeth Warren's thunder?
Yeah, I would actually really look at Amy Klobuchar because I think that she is going to try to distinguish herself from Warren's big, huge fundamental change plans. And she's going to give you just a few things that America can do to sort of move the ball forward. I'd be interested to see if she could really try to break out from that second tier that she's in and try to really establish herself.
Zerlina, do you agree? I see you nodding your head.
I mean, I do think there's an opportunity for Amy Klobuchar because she's the most different from those top 5 folks.
Because she's more moderate?
Right, because she's more moderate. But I think she's the one person in tonight's debate that could challenge Joe Biden in that lane, right? Nobody else is vying for that lane, so I think that there is an opening.
Who the
but I don't
fuck
know
is
if that
Amy
resonates with the base
Klobuchar?
of the party. And
No.
so this early in the primary, you need that activist energy. You need those people organizing and knocking on doors and fundraising and making calls so you're growing your coalition. So I don't know that there's that many people in the base that would support her, but she certainly has a message and can vie for that central lane.
Michael, how do you feel about that so-called activist energy? Who should the contenders be speaking to tonight?
You know, look, I think Julian Castro will do.
Activist energy. Big dick energy. Get some big dick energy up there. Tulsi, bring the big dick energy. Who's gonna be bringing the big dick energy tonight? Tulsi. Have you guys seen her? She was on Instagram working out beforehand, all like sweaty, just hours before the debate. Hours before the debate, Tulsi was doing some fucking Pilates or some shit. I don't know. People are saying Yang is gonna bring the big dick energy. Yeah, tomorrow. I think Bernie will bring the big dick energy, but Yang will do good too. Tomorrow's gonna be hard because this night I only like one person. We don't know who Amy Klobuchar is.
The stage, and as we mentioned earlier, they're taking their positions at the podium based on where they fell in the most recent poll. As a final thought, Zerlina, is there anything that we should be looking for tonight, or even asking ourselves as citizens while we're watching?
I think that I'm going to be listening in for talk about reproductive health care. That's an issue that was not brought up. It was not asked as a question from a news organization's moderator until Hillary Clinton brought it up herself in a debate. There were no questions about abortion. There were no questions about funding from Planned Parenthood and the stripping back of reproductive freedom. So that being a central issue with Georgia and Missouri and all these other states passing very restrictive laws to go straight at Roe v. Wade, I think that these candidates need to speak clearly on that issue and look like they understand what's at stake for American women, because again, women are going to be the difference.
Biden voted against that,
just like they were in 2018 and in 2016 and all the elections previously.
Which is interesting because I think this cycle we've seen a lot of...
Biden was also pro-segregated schools, by the way, and advocated for that
for example,
back in the day.
Right?
Fun fact!
The Green New Deal. I mean, these were once thoughts that you would consider, you know, in your freshman dorm poli-sci class, and now they're probably going to reach the national debate stage. So are there any other issues, Alex, that we should look out for or listen for that maybe haven't been discussed or even reported?
You know, I actually think just because of the events of today, immigration is just going to be top of mind for everybody. And it would be curious if any of the candidates really go beyond just comprehensive immigration reform and attacking Trump, but actually articulate a positive, a different vision for immigration, whether or not it's Beto O'Rourke, who's from the border, or it's Julian Castro, who obviously is the only Latino candidate in the race.
Right.
And as they articulate that, we heard the students say they wanted the style and they want the substance.
Let's see if someone goes above just orange man bad. So we'll see.
Grab those tomorrow morning headlines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's fighting for that. Everyone agrees on that.
You have to. I mean, I worked for Romney, Gingrich, and Carson. I've been to every single presidential debate with those three individuals. You
this
have
camera
to have
guy,
a moment that
is this a
tomorrow morning's
drone?
headlines
Or is this
will
like
say,
a camera?
did you see what so-and-so said? Particularly now,
Obama just in the back
changed from
with a literal fucking
12
drone.
years ago.
They're so instantaneous.
Right.
The drone
I
man.
would argue it's even changed from 2016. It's a little bit quicker than it was in 2016. And also now there are a lot of trolls and bots that we weren't aware that they were trolls and bots and
disinformation.
And disinformation. So now we have to be on the lookout for that. I think the Democratic campaigns are going to have to navigate a whole new terrain this year.
It's a whole new terrain that we are about to see them navigate as we speak.
Wasn't that
Guys, the
proven,
debate
like,
is
not
about
real?
to start. You can see those candidates there lining up in the podium. You can watch this on NBC News, on Telemundo, on MSNBC. We want to give a big thank you to Zerlina, Shermichael, Alex, and Jackie. They're going to stick with us. We're going to have a post-debate show because we will be right back after the debate with more from our college panel as well and analyses from these guys. But for now, we are going to hand it over to our team in Miami, and we hope that you enjoy watching
Look at
this
this
debate
camera
as
work.
much as we will. See you soon.
Having a fucking seizure over there. Silence. Just silence.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lester Holt, and welcome
Here
to the
we
first
go.
Democratic debate
Can
in
you
the
guys hear it?
2020 race for president.
Hi, I'm Savannah Guthrie, and tonight it's our first chance to see these candidates go head-to-head on stage together. We'll be joined in our questioning tonight by our colleagues, Jose Diaz-Balart, Chuck Todd, and Rachel Maddow.
Voters are trying to nail down where the candidates stand on the issues, what sets them apart, and which of these presidential hopefuls has what it takes.
Well, now
Tulsi.
it's time to find out.
Tonight,
The only one.
round one. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, former Housing Secretary Julian Castro, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, former Maryland Congressman John Delaney, Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan, and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. From NBC News, Decision 2020, the Democratic Candidates Debate. Live from the Adrian Arch Performing Arts Center in Miami.
Guys, I'm hyped. Guys, get hyped.
Good evening again, everyone. Welcome to the candidates.
Hype,
and
hype.
our audience States, here in Miami, here in the Arts Center, and all across the country. Tonight, we're going to take on many of the most pressing issues of the moment, including immigration, the situation unfolding at our border, and the treatment of migrant children.
And we're going to talk about the tensions with Iran, climate change, and of course, we'll talk about the economy, those kitchen table issues so many Americans face every day.
And some quick rules of the road before we begin. 20 candidates qualified for this first debate. We'll hear from 10 tonight and 10 more tomorrow. The breakdown for each was selected at random. The candidates will have 60 seconds to answer and 30 seconds for any follow-ups.
Because of this,
look how cute Tulsi
not every
looks.
person will be able to comment on every topic, but over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from everyone. We'd also like to ask the audience to keep the reactions to a minimum. We are not going to be shy about making sure the candidates stick to time tonight.
All right, so with that business...
Someone just pointed out how many dislikes this has. It has a lot of dislikes.
Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, good evening to you.
Thank you.
You have many plans: free college, free childcare, government health care, cancellation of student debt, new taxes, new regulations, the breakup of major corporations. But this comes at a time when 71% of Americans say the economy is doing well, including 60% of Democrats. What do you say to those who worry this kind of significant change could be risky to the economy?
So I think of it this way. Who is this economy really working for? It's doing great for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. It's doing great for giant drug companies. It's just not doing great for people who are trying to get a prescription filled. It's doing great for people who want to invest in private prisons, just not for the African Americans and Latinx whose families are torn apart, whose lives are destroyed, and whose communities are ruined. It's doing great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who are watching climate change bear down upon us.
She's just trying to shove everything
you've got an economy
in this one
that does
answer.
great for those with money and isn't doing great for everyone else. That is corruption, pure and simple. We need to call it out. We need to attack it head on. And we need to make structural change in our government, in our economy, and in our country.
Senator Klobuchar, you've called programs like free college something you might do if you were, quote, a magic genie. To be blunt, are the government programs and benefits that some of your rivals are offering giving your voters, people, a false sense of what's actually achievable?
Well, first, the economy. We know that not everyone is sharing in this prosperity, and Donald Trump just sits in the White House and gloats about what's going on when you have so many people that are having trouble affording college and having trouble affording their premiums. So I do get concerned about paying for college for rich kids. I do. But I think my plan is a good one. And my plan would be to, first of all, make community college free. And make sure that everyone else besides that top percentile gets help with their education. My own dad and my sister got their first degrees with community college. There's many paths to success, as well as certifications. Secondly, I'd use Pell Grants. I'd double them from $6,000 to $12,000 a year and expand it to the number of families that get covered, to families that make up to $100,000. And then the third thing I would do is make it easier for students to pay off their student loans. Because I can tell you this, if billionaires can pay off their yachts, students should be able to pay off their student loans.
That's time. Thank you. Congressman
They
O'Rourke,
agree to the debt bill.
what we've just been discussing and talking about is how much fundamental change to the economy is desirable and how much is actually doable. In that vein, some Democrats want a marginal individual tax rate of 70% on the very highest earners, those making more than $10 million a year. Would you support that? And if not, what would your top individual rate be?
This economy
has
got to work for everyone. And right now we know that it isn't. And it's going to take all of us coming together to make sure that it does. Necesitamos incluir cada persona en el éxito de esta economía. Pero si queremos hacer eso, necesitamos incluir cada persona en nuestra democracia. Cada votante necesitamos la representación de cada voz, necesitamos escuchar. Right now we have a system that favors those who can pay for access and outcomes. That's
That
how you
was out of
explain an
nowhere.
economy that is rigged to corporations and
It's
to the
not
very
as totally
wealthiest. A
stupid
$2
move. I
trillion
mean, there's a
tax cut
huge
that favored corporations while they were sitting on
Spanish-speaking,
record piles
voter
of cash
demographic.
and the very
It was a
wealthiest in
power
this country
move.
at a time
It was a power
of historic
move. Look, I can
wealth
speak in
inequality. A new democracy that is
Is Tulsi
revived
gonna
because we
start
return
speaking
power to the people.
Hawaiian?
No pacts, no gerrymandering, automatic and same-day voter registration to bring in more voters, and a new Voting Rights Act to get rid of the barriers that are in place
Congressman
now.
O'Rourke.
That's how we each have a voice in our democracy and make this
Congressman.
economy work for everyone.
That's time.
You spent too much time talking
I'll
Spanish.
give you 10 seconds to answer. If you want to answer the direct question, would you support a 70% individual marginal tax rate?
He
Yes,
didn't
no,
even-
or pass.
I would support a
Did he
tax
even-
rate
he didn't
and a
answer the
tax code
question.
that is fair to everyone. Tax capital at the
70%?
same rate that you tax ordinary income. Take that corporate tax rate up to 28%. You would generate the
Okay,
revenues
that's
you
time.
need to pay for the programs we're talking about.
That's time. Thank you. Senator Booker, there is a debate in this party right now about the role of corporations, as you know. Senator Warren, in particular, put out
This
a plan
dude's
to
a
break up
vegan.
tech
Isn't he
companies
the
like
vegan
Facebook,
guy?
Amazon, and Google. You've said we should not, quote,
Vegan
be
president.
running around pointing at companies and breaking them up without any kind of process. Why do you disagree?
I don't think I disagree. I think we have a serious problem in our country with corporate consolidation. And you see the evidence of that in how dignity is being stripped from labor. And we have people that work full-time jobs and still can't make a living wage. We see that because
Corey in
consumer
the
prices
house.
are being raised by pharmaceutical companies that often have monopolistic holds on drugs. And you see that by just the fact that this is actually an economy that's hurting small businesses and not allowing them to compete. One of the most aggressive bills in the Senate to deal with corporate consolidation is mine about corporate consolidation in the ag sector. So I feel very strongly about the need to check the corporate consolidation and let the free market work. And I'll tell you this, I live in a low-income black and brown community. I see every single day that this economy is not working for average Americans. The indicators that are being used from GDP to Wall Street's rankings is not helping people in my community. It is about time that we have an economy that works for everybody, not just the wealthiest in our nation.
But quickly, Senator Booker, you did say that you didn't think it was right to name names, to name companies and single them out, as Senator Warren has. Briefly, why is that?
Well, again, I will single out companies like Halliburton or Amazon that pay nothing in taxes and are need to change that.
Go
and when
off,
it comes to
Ken.
antitrust law, what I will do is, number one, appoint judges that will enforce it. Number two, have a DOJ and a Federal
They
Trade
all, like,
Commission that will go through the processes
sorta
necessary
agree
to check this
when it
kind
comes
of
to the
corporate
corporations.
concentration. At the end of the day, we have
But some of these
too
people are
much of a
getting
problem
paid
with
by
corporate power growing.
That's why they
We
don't
see that
wanna
with
be
everything from
naming
Citizens United and the way they're trying to influence Washington. It's about time that we have a president that fights for the people in this country
That's time,
who
sir.
need to have someone that's a champion for them.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Warren, I mentioned you. Are you picking winners and losers?
So the way I understand
Why are
this
we back
is
to
there is
Elizabeth?
way too much consolidation now in giant industries in this country. That hurts workers, it hurts small businesses, it hurts independent farmers, it hurts our economy overall, and it helps constrict real innovation and growth in this economy. Now look, we've had the laws out there for a long time to be able to fight back. What's been missing is courage. Courage in Washington to take on the giants. That's part of the corruption in this system. It has been far too long that the monopolies have been making the campaign contributions, have been funding the super PACs, have been out there making sure that their influence is heard and felt in every single decision that gets made in Washington. Where I want to start this is I want to return government to the people, and that means calling out the names of the monopolists and saying I have the courage to go after them.
Thank you.
Go the fuck off, Queen. That was pretty good. Wow.
Secretary Castro, the next question is for you. Democrats have been talking about the pay gap for decades.
Oh!
What would you do to ensure that women are paid fairly in this country?
Thank you very much for that question, Lester. You know, I grew up with a
Oh,
mother
no.
who raised my brother Joaquin and me as a single parent. And I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to rent a home and to worry about whether you're going to be able to pay the rent at the first of the month, and to see a mom work very, very hard and know that moms across this country are getting paid less simply because they're women. I would do several things, starting with something we should have done a long time ago, which is to pass the Equal Rights Amendment finally,
They did do that a long time.
and also pursue legislation so that women are paid equal pay for equal work in this country. It's past time that we did that. And
Yes,
you know,
it's way
we
past
have to do
time
this.
because
If
we
we want to
already
be
did it.
the most prosperous nation in the 21st century, we need to make sure that women are paid what they deserve.
All right, thank you. I want to put the same question to Congresswoman Gabbard. Your thoughts on equal pay?
Yes.
No, first of all, let's recognize the situation we're in, that the American people deserve a president who will put your interests ahead of the rich and powerful. That's not what we have right now. I enlisted in the Army National Guard after the al-Qaeda terror attacks on 9/11, so I could go after those who had attacked us on that day. I still serve as a major, served over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East, and in Congress serve on the Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committees for over 6 years.
She's avoiding my wage gap.
I know the importance of our national security, as well as the terribly high cost of war. And for too long, our leaders have failed us, taking us from one regime change war to the next, leading us into a new Cold War and arms race, costing us trillions of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars and countless lives. This insanity must end. As president, I will take your hard-earned taxpayer dollars and instead invest those dollars into serving your needs. Things like health care, a green economy, good-paying jobs, protecting our environment, and so much more.
Mayor de Blasio, good evening.
Ow!
You're the mayor of the biggest city in the United States, but it's also one of the cities in the country with the greatest gap between the wealthy and the poor.
Go off!
How would you address income inequality?
Well, we've been addressing income inequality in New York City
She
by raising
absolutely
wages, by
avoided
raising benefits, by
the
putting
wage
money
gap
back
question,
in the
by the
hands
way.
of
Did
working
you see
people.
that?
$15 minimum wage, paid sick days, pre-K for all, things that are making a huge difference in working people's lives. But let me tell you
Fuck
what we're
it.
hearing
If
here
I'm
already in
getting
the
to
first
say
round of
one
questions
thing, it's going to be
is that
get
battle
us
for the
out of
heart
these
and soul
wars.
of
Fuck
our
your
party.
wage
I
gap
want to make
shit.
it clear.
It's irrelevant.
This is supposed to be the
Get us
party
the
of
fuck
working
out of the
people.
wars.
Yes, we're supposed to be for a 70% tax rate on the wealthy. Yes, we're supposed to be for free college, free public college for our young people. We are supposed to break up big corporations when they're not serving our democracy. This Democratic Party has to be strong and bold and progressive. And in New York, we've proven that we can do something very different. We can put money back in the hands of working people. And let me tell you, every time you talk about investing in people and their communities, you hear folks say there's not enough money. What I say to them every single time is there's plenty of money in this world. There's plenty of money in this country. It's just in the wrong hands. We Democrats have to fix that.
Congressman Delaney, do you agree?
I think we need to do real things to help American workers and the American people, right? This is the issue that all of us here on the campaign trail. We need to make sure everyone has a living wage. And I've called for a doubling of the earned income tax credit, raising the minimum wage, and creating paid family leave. That will create a situation where people actually have a living wage. That gets right to workers. Then we got to fix our public education system. It's not delivering the results our kids need, nor is college and post-high school career and technical training
They all
programs doing that.
pretty much
You know,
agree
I'm very
on
different than everyone
the
else here on the
things.
stage. Prior to being in Congress, I was an
Tulsi's
entrepreneur.
the only one
I
standing
started
out,
2 businesses.
and Elizabeth
I
Warren.
created thousands of jobs. I spent my whole career helping small to mid-sized businesses all over the country. 5,000 of them I supported. The Obama administration gave me an award for lending to disadvantaged communities. I know how to create jobs. We need a short-term strategy, which is to put money in the pockets of workers with the earned income tax credit, raising the minimum wage and creating paid family leave. And then we need to have a long-term strategy to make sure this country is competitive and we're creating jobs everywhere in this country.
Governor Inslee, how would you address income inequality?
That's the guy, by the way, who got booed off the stage
but I'm a governor,
for not
and we gotta
supporting
realize
Medicare
the people
for all.
who brought us the
He's
weekend.
like, it's not good
unions
politics. And
needed
everyone
to
started
bring us
booing him.
a long overdue raise in America. And I'm proud of standing up for unions. I've got a plan to reinvigorate collective bargaining so we can increase wages finally.
They all just look like
folks.
Joe Biden.
It is not right that the CEO of
Is that
McDonald's
racist?
makes 2,100
They all look like
times
Joe
more
Biden.
than the people singing hash at McDonald's. And the next thing I'll do is put people to work in the jobs of the present and the future. Look at Donald Trump is simply wrong.
Wow!
He says wind turbines cause cancer. We know they cause jobs. And we know that we can put millions of people to work in the clean energy jobs of the future. Carpenters, IBEW's members, machinists, We're doing it in my state today. And then we can do what America always does. Lead the world and invent the future and put people to work. That's what we're going to do.
Congressman Ryan, President Trump, and you just referred to him, promised that manufacturing jobs were all coming back to places like
all Joe
your
Biden.
home state of Ohio. Can you make that same promise?
Yes, I believe you can. But first, let's say the president came. He said, don't sell your house to people in Youngstown, Ohio. And in his administration, just in the last 2 years, we lost $4,000 jobs at a General Motors facility. That rippled throughout our community. General Motors got a tax cut. General Motors got a bailout. And then they have the audacity to move a new car that they're going to produce to Mexico. I've had family members that have to unbolt a machine from the factory floor, put it in a box, and ship it to China. My area where I come from in Northeast Ohio, this issue we're talking about here, it's been going on 40 years. This is not a new phenomenon in the United States of America. The bottom 60% haven't seen a raise since 1980. Meanwhile, the top 1% control 90% of the wealth. We need an industrial policy saying we're going to dominate building electric vehicles. There's going to be 30 million made in the next 10 years. I want half of them made in the United States. I want to dominate the solar industry and manufacture those here in the United States.
Senator Warren, are they coming back?
Tim Ryan.
So we've had an industrial policy in the United States for decades now, and it's basically been let giant corporations do whatever they want to do. Giant corporations have exactly one loyalty, and that is to profits. And if they can save a nickel by moving a job to Mexico or to Asia or to Canada, they're going to do it. So here's what I propose for an industrial policy. Start with a place where there's a real need. There's going to be a worldwide need for green technology, ways to clean up the air, ways to clean up the water. And we can be the ones to provide that. We need to go tenfold in our research and development on green energy going forward. And then we need to say, any corporation can come and use that research. They can make all kinds of products from it, but they have to be manufactured right here in the United States of America. And then we have to double down and sell it around the world. There's a $23 trillion market coming for green products. We should be the leaders and the owners, and we should have that 1.2 million manufacturing jobs here. Is that what? We can do this.
All right, we're going to turn to the issue of healthcare right now. Really try to understand where there may or may not be daylight between you. Many people watching at home have health insurance.
But she's the only one getting the most screen time, of course.
Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Just a show of hands, starting out with. All right, well, Senator Klobuchar, let me put the question to you. You're one of the Democrats who wants to keep private insurance in addition to a government health care plan. Why is an incremental approach, in your view, better than a sweeping overhaul?
Well, I think it's a bold approach. It's something that Barack Obama wanted to do when we were working on the Affordable Care Act, and that is a public option. I am just simply concerned about kicking half of America off of their health insurance in 4 years, which is exactly what this bill says. So let me go on beyond that. There is a much bigger issue in addition to that, and that is pharmaceuticals. The president literally went on TV, on Fox, and said that people's heads would spin when they see how much he would bring down pharmaceutical prices. Instead, 2,500 drugs have gone up in double digits since he came into office. Instead, he gave $100 billion in giveaways to the pharma companies. For the rest of us, for the rest of America, that's what we call at home, all foam and no beer. We got nothing out of it. And so my proposal is to do something about pharma, to take them on, to allow negotiation under Medicare, to bring in less expensive drugs from other countries. And pharma thinks they own Washington. Well, they don't own me.
Your time is up. Thank you. Senator Warren, you signed on to Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. It would put essentially everybody on Medicare and then eliminate private plans that offer similar coverage. Is that the plan or path that you would pursue as president?
So yes, I'm with Bernie on Medicare for All, and let me tell you why. I spent a big chunk of my life studying why families go broke. And one of the #1 reasons is the cost of health care, medical bills. And that's not just for people who don't have insurance. It's for people who have insurance. Look at the business model of an insurance company. It's to bring in as many dollars as they can in premiums and to pay out as few dollars as possible for your health care.
They are pushing Warren
with rising
so
premiums, rising
hard,
co-pays,
but go
and
off,
fighting with insurance companies to try to get the health care that their doctors say that they and their children need. Medicare for All solves that problem. And I understand there are a lot of politicians who say, oh, it's just not possible, we just can't do it, it's have a lot of political reasons for this. What they're really telling you is they just won't fight for it. Well, healthcare is a basic human right, and I will fight for basic human rights.
Bitch! Holy fuck!
Congressman
Warren
O'Rourke,
winning
you
me
ran for
over
Senate,
over
you
here.
also praised the bill that would replace private insurance. This year, you're saying you're no longer sure. Can you explain why?
My goal is to
No,
ensure
get him off
that
the
every
screen.
American is well enough to live to their full potential because they have health care. In Laredo, Texas, I met a young man, 27 years old, told me that he'd been to a doctor once in his life. And on that visit, he was told he had diabetes, he was told he had glaucoma, and he was told untreated because he doesn't have health care, he'll be dead before the age of 40. So getting to guaranteed, high-quality, universal health care as quickly and surely as possible has to be our goal. The ability to afford your prescriptions and go to a primary care provider. The ability to see a mental health care provider. In Texas, the single largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system today. And healthcare also has to mean that every woman can make her own decisions about her own body and has access to the care that makes that possible. Our plan says that if you're uninsured, we enroll you in Medicare. If you're insufficiently insured, you can't afford your premiums, we enroll you in Medicare. But if you're a member of a union that negotiated for a health care plan that you like because it works for you and your family, you're able to keep it. We preserve choice by making sure that everybody has health
Time is up, Congressman, but I do want to ask a follow-up on this one. Just to be very clear, I'll give you 10 seconds. Would you replace private insurance?
No, I think the choice is fundamental to our ability to get everybody care.
Private insurance is not working for tens of millions of Americans. When you talk about the co-pays, the deductibles, the premiums, the out-of-pocket expenses, it's not working.
That's right. So for those for whom it's not working, they can choose Medicare. For the coronary workers in Nevada who I listened to, who negotiated for this.
Oh shit, they're fighting!
Why are you defending private
The girls are
insurance?
fighting.
They like their private health insurance, by the way. It should be noted that 100 million Americans. I mean, I think we should be the party that keeps what's working and fixes what's broken.
What's working?
I mean, doesn't that make sense? I mean, we should give everyone in this country health care as a basic human right for free. Full stop.
Yes.
But we should also give them the option to buy private insurance. Why do we have to stand for taking away something from people? And also, it's bad policy. If you go to every hospital in this country and you ask them one question, which is how would it have been for you last year if every one of your bills were paid at the Medicare rate? Every single hospital administrator said they would close. And the Medicare for All bill requires payments to stay at current Medicare rates. So to some extent, we're basically supporting a bill that will have every hospital closed. I mean, my dad was a union electrician, right? I actually grew up in a working class family. He loved the health care that the IBEW gave him. And I just always think about my dad and anything I would do from a policy perspective. He'd look at me and he'd say, good job, John, for getting health care for every American. But why are you taking my health care?
I've let this play out a little bit because I'm fascinated to hear the daylight between you. Congresswoman Gabbard, weigh in here.
I think we're talking about this in the wrong way. You're talking about one bill over another bill. Really what we're talking about is our objective, making sure that every single sick American in this country is able to get the health care that they need. I believe Medicare for All is the way to do that. I also think that employers will recognize how much money will be saved by supporting a Medicare for All program, a program that will reduce the administrative costs, reduce the bureaucratic costs, and make sure that everyone gets that quality health care that they need. I also think if you look at other countries in the world who have universal health care, every one of them has some form of a role of private insurance. I think that's what we've got to look at, taking the best of these ideas, but making sure unequivocally that no sick American goes without getting the care that they need, regardless of how much or little money they have in their pocket.
Congresswoman, let me turn to Senator Booker on this. Senator Booker, explain to me where you are. This is hugely important to people. So tell us where you are.
I absolutely will. First of all, we're talking about this as a healthcare issue, but in communities like mine, low-income communities, it's an education issue because kids who don't have healthcare are not going to succeed in school. It is an issue for jobs and employment because people who do not have good healthcare do not succeed at work. It's even a retirement issue because in my community, African Americans have a lower life expectancy because of poorer healthcare. And so where I stand is very clear. Healthcare is not just a human right, it should be an American right. And I believe the best way to get there is Medicare for all. But I have an urgency about this. When I am president of the United States, I'm not going to wait. We have to do the things immediately that are going to provide better care. And on this debate, I'm sorry, there are too many people profiteering off of the pain of people in America, from pharmaceutical companies to insurers. Literally, the overhead for insurers that they charge is 15%, while Medicare's overhead is only at 2%. We can do this better, and every single day I will be fighting to give people more access and more affordable costs until we get to my goal, which is every
They asked
American
her about the
having
wage
health
gap,
care.
and she just pivoted and started talking about getting us out of the wars.
And that is that the insurance companies last year alone sucked $23 billion in profits out of the healthcare system. $23 billion, and that doesn't count the money that was paid to executives, the money that was spent lobbying Washington. We have a giant industry that wants our healthcare system to stay the way it is, because it's not working for families, but it's sure as heck working for them. It's time for us to make families come first.
She's like crying.
It should not be an option in the United States of America for any insurance company to deny women coverage for their exercise of their right of choice. And I am the only candidate here who has passed a law protecting a woman's right of reproductive health and health insurance.
Well, that's because...
And I'm the only candidate who's passed a public option. And I respect everybody's goals and plans here. But we do have one candidate that's actually advanced the ball. And we got to have access for everyone. I've done it as a public option.
He's like, whoa, that's not, everyone's like, that's not fair.
He calls them all out.
I know.
They're like, that's not fair.
We all live in states where
women's right to choose.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Exactly. What a stupid call.
What an asshole.
Universal
Everyone else sucks except me.
The idea I put out there, the public option, which the governor was just talking about, this idea is that you use Medicare or Medicaid without any insurance companies involved. You could do it either way. And the estimates are 13 million people would see a reduction in their premiums. 12 more million people would get covered. So I think it is a beginning, and the way you start and the way you move to universal health care.
Excuse me?
Secretary
I'm a
Castro,
woman.
this one is for you. All of you on stage support a woman's right to an abortion. You all support some version of a government health care option. Would your plan cover abortion, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, it would. I don't believe only in reproductive freedom. I believe in reproductive justice. And what that means is that just because a woman, or let's also not forget, someone in the trans community, a trans female, is poor, doesn't mean they shouldn't have the right to exercise.
Dude said trans rights.
That
I
right
forgot
to
his
choose.
name,
And
but he
so I absolutely would
said it.
cover the right to have an abortion. More than that, everybody in this crowd and watching at home knows that in our country today, a person's right to choose is under assault in places like Missouri, in Alabama, in Georgia.
Someone in the chat said trans
judges to the
abortion.
federal bench that understand the precedent of Roe v. Wade and will respect it. And in addition to that, make sure that we
Castro
fight
out
hard
here,
as we
trans
transition
rights.
our healthcare system to one where everybody can get and exercise that right.
Senator Warren, would you put limits on any limits on abortion?
I would make certain that every woman has access to the full range of reproductive health care services, and that includes birth control, it includes abortion, it includes everything for a woman. And I want to add on that, it's not enough for us to expect the courts to protect us. 47 years ago, Roe versus Wade was decided, and we've all looked to the courts all that time as state after state has undermined Roe, has put in exceptions, has come right up to the edge of taking away protection.
Your time is up, Senator.
We now have an America where most people support Roe versus Wade. We need to make that
Senator
federal
York,
law.
thank you. Jose?
Thank you.
Senator Booker, I want to kind of come back on
Warren
the
is
discussion
a
we were
very
having
good
about health
speaker.
and the opioid
I will give her
crisis.
that.
You,
She gets me like
represent a state where
She could just be like
14
saying
of
the dumbest
20
shit, and I'll be
largest
like,
pharmaceutical companies
"Go off, Queen."
are based.
She's got
Should
that.
pharmaceutical companies
Even though
that
she sounds like she's
manufacture these
crying.
drugs be held criminally liable for what they do?
They should absolutely be held criminally liable because they are liable and responsible. This is one of the reasons why, well before I was running for president, I said I would not take contributions from pharma companies, not take contributions from corporate PACs or pharma executives, because they are part of this problem. And this opioid addiction in our country, we in cities like mine have been seeing how we've tried to arrest our way out of addiction for too long. It is time that we have a national urgency to deal with this problem and make the solutions that are working to actually be the law of our land and make the pharmaceutical companies that are responsible help to pay for that.
Congressman O'Rourke, how would you deal?
Tonight in this country, you have 2.3 million of our fellow Americans behind bars. It's the largest prison population on the face of the planet. Many are there for nonviolent drug crimes, including possession of marijuana, at a time that more than half the states have legalized it or decriminalized it. And yet, despite what Purdue Pharma has done, their connection to the opioid crisis and the overdose deaths that we're seeing throughout this country, they've been able to act with complete impunity and pay no consequences, not a single night in jail. Unless there's accountability and justice, this crisis will continue. In my administration, we will hold them to account. We will make sure that they pay a price, and we will help those who've been victims of this malfeasance in this country, get them treatment and long-term care.
I know immigration is on a lot of your minds here, and I want to talk about it. We're going to talk about it in a moment. We need to take a break. We'll be back with more from Miami after this.
All right, guys. They're taking a break. So, thoughts. Elizabeth Warren. They're giving her so much airtime. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen. She sounds like she's just trying to be Bernie. And honestly, her and Bernie are like the very concerned grandparents. I don't hate Warren. But yeah. So, Beto actually had some pretty good points, but I can't get over the fact that he's just started talking Spanish out of nowhere. That fucked me up. It was hilarious, and it was absolutely a power move, because you know they were eating that shit up, and he was just like, look at me, I can speak fucking Spanish, but, you know, that was hilarious. That was so left field. And, but Beto had some pretty good points. I also can't get over the fact that he wants to tax families who do not have anybody in the military. Beto O'Rourke, whatever how do you pronounce that shit? Fucking Irish potatoes. He wants to tax families that don't have anyone in the military. Like, dead ass. That's one of his policies he's pushing. What? Fight in our endless, pointless wars or be taxed. Fucking A. Tulsi had no time to speak, but when she did a great job. I loved that she, instead of answering, what will you do about the pay gap? Because, what the fuck? Like, she finally gets to talk, and it's, what would you do about the pay gap? She was like, no, actually, we need to pull out of these wars. We need to not go to war with Iran. We need to focus on giving all that money back to the American people. She didn't even fucking, touch it. She absolutely pivoted, which I'm sure is going to be seen as a negative thing, but it was hilarious, and I think she did a good job. But yeah, so far, pretty good.
30 miles from where we are tonight. Fathers and mothers and children are dying while trying to enter the United States of America. We saw that image today that broke our hearts, and they had names. Oscar Martinez and his 23-month-old daughter Valeria died trying to cross the river to ask for asylum in this country. Last month, more than 130,000 migrants were apprehended at the southern border. Secretary Castro, if you were president today, hoy, what would you specifically do?
Thank you very much, Jose. I'm very proud that in April I became the first candidate to put forward a comprehensive immigration plan. And we saw those images. Watching that image of Oscar and his daughter Valeria is heartbreaking. it should also piss us all off. If I were president today, and it should spur us to action, if I were president today, I would sign an executive order that would get rid of Trump's zero tolerance policy, the Remain in Mexico policy, and the metering policy. This metering policy is basically what prompted Oscar and Valeria to make that risky swim across the river. They have been playing games with people who are coming and trying to seek asylum at our ports of entry. Oscar and Valeria went to a port of entry, and then they were denied the ability to make an asylum claim. So they got frustrated, and they tried to cross the river, and they died because of that.
On day one, sorry.
On day one, I would do that executive order that would address metering, and then I would follow that up in my first 100 days with immigration reform that would honor asylum claims, that would put undocumented immigrants, as long as they haven't committed a serious crime, on a pathway to citizenship, and then would go to the root cause of the issue, which is we need a Marshall Plan for Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador, so that people can find safety and opportunity at home instead of coming to the United States to seek it.
Senator Booker, what would you do on day one? And this is a situation that the next president will inherit.
Yes.
La situación ahora es inaceptable. El presidente ha atacado, ha demonizado los inmigrantes. Es inaceptable. Voy a cambiar este. On day one, I will make sure that, number one, we end the ICE policies and the customs and border policies that are violating the human rights. When people come to this country, they do not leave.
They're all
their
trying to
human
one-up
rights
each
at the
other with
border.
the Spanish.
Number two, I will make sure that we reinstate DACA, that we reinstate pathways to citizenship for DACA recipients, and to make sure that people that are here on temporary protected status can stay and remain here. And then finally, we need to make sure that we address the issues that made Oscar and Valeria come in the first place by making major investments in the Northern Triangle, not like this president is doing, by ripping away the resources we need to actually solve this problem. We cannot surrender our values and think that we're going to get border security. We actually will lose security and our values. We must fight for both.
Well, if I might, very briefly,
These
this
guys
is an
have
important
pretty
point.
good answers,
My plan,
actually,
and I'm glad to see that Senator Booker, Senator Warren, and Governor Inslee agree with me on this. My plan also includes getting rid of Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, to go back to the way we used to treat this when somebody comes across the border, not to criminalize desperation, to treat that as a civil violation. And here's why it's important. We see all of this horrendous family separation. They use that law, Section 1325, to justify under the law separating little children from their families.
Jose,
and so I want to challenge every single candidate on this stage to support the repeal of Section 1325.
30 seconds.
As my friend here said, I agree with him on that issue, but folks should understand that the separation of children from families doesn't just go on at our border. It happens in our communities as ICE are ripping away parents from their American children, spouses and the like, and are creating fear in cities all across this country where parents are afraid to even drop their kids off to school or go to work. We must end those policies as well.
Discussion about immigration in this country, because look at the bottom line here. That tragic photo of that parent, that child. And I'm saying this as a father. Every American should feel that in their heart, and every American should say that is not America. Those are not our values, but we have to get under the skin of why we have this crisis in our system, because we're not being honest about the division that's been fomented in this country. The way that American citizens have been told that immigrants somehow created their misery and their pain and their challenges. For all the American citizens out there who feel you're falling behind, who feel the American dream's not working for you, the immigrants didn't do that to you.
Robots did.
The big corporations did that to you. The 1% did that to you. We need to be the party of working people, and that includes a party of immigrants. But first, we have to tell working people in America who are hurting that we're going to be on their side every single time against those big corporations who created this mess to begin with. And remind people we're all in this together. If we don't change that debate, that politics that's holding us back, we won't get all these reforms people are talking about. That's what we need to do as Democrats.
Congresista, if I could, I'm sorry. Congresista O'Rourke, ¿qué haría usted en el primer día, si usted es presidente, sobre esta realidad que está ocurriendo? What would you do, Congressman, day one at the White House?
Vamos a tratar cada persona con el respeto y dignidad que merecen como humanos. We would not turn back Valeria
I get
and her
what he's
father,
doing,
Oscar.
but this
We
is...
would accept them into this country and follow our own asylum laws. We would not build walls.
Speak
We would not
American!
put kids in cages. In
you're
fact, we
alienating
would spare no
your
expense
policy
to
needs to
reunite the
criminalize
families
a lot of
that have been
these families.
separated already.
Congressman,
And we
your
would not
policy
criminally
would still
prosecute
I just
any
want them to
family
start
because you're
fighting in
fleeing the
Spanish,
violence
and it would turn into like a Spanish
We
soap
would make
opera.
sure,
Like a
Secretary, let him
novella.
finish, and I will
Tell
give you
a
this policy, but let him finish. Let him finish, please.
¿Por qué, Beto?
We would not detain any family fleeing violence, in fact, fleeing the deadliest countries on the face of the planet today. We would implement a family case management program so they could be cared for in the community at a fraction of the cost. And then we would rewrite our immigration laws in our own image. Free dreamers forever from any fear of deportation by making them U.S. citizens here in this country. Invest in solutions in Central America, work with regional stakeholders so there's no reason to make that 2,000-mile journey to this country.
Secretary, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Let's be very clear. The reason that they're separating these little children from their families is that they're using Section 1325 of that act, which criminalizes coming across the border, to incarcerate the parents and then separate them. Some of us on this stage have called to end that section, to terminate it. Some, like Congressman O'Rourke, have not. And I want to challenge all of the candidates to do that. I just think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake. And I think that if you truly want to change the system, then we got to repeal that section. If not, then it might as well be the same policy.
Let me respond to this very briefly. Actually, as a member of Congress, I helped to introduce legislation that would ensure that we don't criminalize those who are seeking asylum and refuge in this country. If you're fleeing desperation, then I want to make sure that you're treated with respect.
I'm still talking about everybody else.
But you're looking at just one small part of this. I'm talking about a comprehensive rewrite of our immigration laws. And if we do that, I don't think it's asking too much for people to follow our laws when they come to this country.
I'm talking about millions of folks. A lot of folks that are coming are not seeking asylum. A lot of them are undocumented immigrants, right? And you said recently that the reason you didn't want to repeal Section 1325 was because you were concerned about human trafficking and drug trafficking. But let me tell you what. Section 18, Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Title 21, and Title 22 already cover human trafficking and drug trafficking. But I think that you should do your homework on this issue. If you did your homework on this issue, you would know that we should repeal this section.
This is an issue that we should and could be talking about for a long time, and we will for a long time.
Can we talk about the conditions for why people are coming here?
Let's let Lester,
Because
Savannah. I know
Mr.
it's
Turtle
just
over
we could
here.
go on.
But rather than talk about specific provisions, we really have to talk about why these people are coming to
You'll
our
get your
country
chance.
and what are we going to do to actually make a difference in these countries.
Congressman, you'll get your chance. Let's continue the discussion. Senator Klobuchar,
Yes.
let's talk about
Tulsi,
what
like I
Secretary
said
Castro
nothing
just said.
for like an hour.
He wants
She's
to
being
no
smart.
longer have it be a crime to illegally cross the border. Do you support that? Do you think it should be a civil offense only? And if so, do you worry about potentially incentivizing people to come here?
Immigrants, they do not diminish America. They are America. And I am happy to look at his proposal, but I do think you want to make sure that you have provisions in place that allow you to go after traffickers and allow you to go after people who are violating the law. What I really think we need to step back and talk about is the economic imperative here. And that is that 70 of our Fortune 500 companies are headed up by people that came from other countries. 25% of our U.S. Nobel laureates were born in other countries. We have a situation right now where we need workers in our fields and in our factories. We need them to start small businesses. We need their ideas. And this president has literally gone backwards at a time where our economy needs immigrants. And so my proposal is to look at that 2013 bill that passed the Senate with Republican support, to upgrade that bill, to make it as good as possible and get it done. It brings the debt down by $158 billion. It gives a path to citizenship for people who can become citizens. And it would be so much better for our economy in America.
That's time. Thank you. Congressman Ryan, same question. Should it be a crime to illegally cross the border, or should it be a civil offense only?
Well, I agree with Secretary Castro. I think there are other provisions in the law that will allow you to prosecute people for coming over here if they're dealing in drugs and other things. That's already established in the law. So there's no need to repeat it. And I think it's abhorrent. We're talking about this father who got killed with his daughter. And the issues here, the way these kids are being treated, if you go to Guantanamo Bay, there are terrorists that are held that get better health care than those kids that have tried to cross the border in the United States. That needs to stop. And I think the president should immediately
Russians
ask doctors and nurses to go immediately down to the border and start taking care of these kids. What kind of country are we running here where we have a president of the United States who's so focused on hate and fear and division? And what has happened now, the end result, is now we've got kids literally laying in their own snot with 3-week-old diapers that haven't been changed. We've got to tell this president that is not a sign of strength, Mr. President. That is a sign of weakness.
Senator Booker, I'll vote you.
Well,
But no, a lot of people, Jose asked the question, if you're president on day one, what will you do with the fact that you will have families here? There's been a lot of talk about what you'll do in the first 100 days, about legislation. What will you actually do with these families? How will you care for them?
Blow them out of the
water. Will they be detained or will they not be?
Well, this is a related and brief point, because what we're talking about, what Secretary Castro and I are talking about, is that we have the power to better deal with this problem through the civil process than the criminal process. I have been to some of the largest private prisons, which are repugnant to me, that people are profiting off of incarceration, and their immigration lockups. Our country has made so many mistakes by criminalizing things, whether it's immigration, whether it's mental illness, whether it's addiction. We know that this is not the way to deal with problems. There is a humane way that affirms human rights and human dignity and actually solve this problem. Donald Trump isn't solving this problem. We've seen under his leadership a surge at our border. We solve this problem by making investments in the Northern Triangle to stop the reasons why people are being driven here in the first place. And we make sure we use our resources to provide health care, to affirm the values and human dignity of the people that come here, because we cannot sacrifice our values, our ideals as a nation for border security. We can have both by doing this the right way.
All right, Senator, thank you. Let me go to Governor Inslee on this. What would you do on day one? Same question I just asked Cory Booker. I have yet to hear an answer from anyone on this stage. What will you do with the families that will be here?
There is no reason for the detention and separation of these children. They should be released pending their hearings, and they should have a hearing and the law should be followed. That's what should happen. And we should do what we're doing in Washington State. I'm proud that we've passed a law that prevents local law enforcement from being turned into mini ICE agents. I'm proud to have been the first governor to stand up against Donald Trump's heinous Muslim ban. I'm proud to be a person who's not only talked about dreamers, but being one of the first to make sure that they get a college education so that they can realize their dreams. These are some of the most inspirational people in our state. And I'll leave you with this thought if you want to know what I think. Donald Trump the other day tried to threaten me. He thought it was a threat to tell me that he would send refugees in Washington State if we passed the law that I passed. And I told him that's not a threat at all. We welcome refugees into our state. We recognize diversity as a strength. This is how we've built America. That tradition is going to continue if I'm president.
So then, we're going to switch to another topic now. We've got a lot to get through. Let's talk. We need to talk about
actually separated from his family when he came to this country.
We're going to talk about Iran right now because we're working against the clock. Tankers have been attacked.
Here comes my bitch.
Have been shot down. There have been disturbing threats issued by both the U.S. and Iranian leadership. I'd like, if you can, just for a moment, to put aside how you think we may have gotten here. But what I want to know is, how do you dial it back? So a show of hands, who as president would sign on to the 2015 nuclear deal as it was originally negotiated? That's it. Well, Senator Booker, why not?
May I address that? First and foremost, it was a mistake to pull out of that deal. And one of the reasons why we're seeing this hostility now is because Donald Trump is marching us to a far more dangerous situation. Literally, he took us out of a deal that gave us transparency into their nuclear program and pushed back a nuclear breakout 10, 20 years. And now we see Iran threatening to go further, and we're being pulled in further and further into this crisis. We need to renegotiate and get back into a deal, but I'm not going to have a primary platform to say unilaterally I'm going to rejoin that that deal, because when I'm president of the United States, I'm going to do the best I can to secure this country and that region and make sure that if I have an opportunity to leverage a better deal, I'm going to do it.
All right, Senator Klobuchar, I'd like you to answer that question because you said you would negotiate yourself back into the Iranian agreement. Can you argue that nuclear pact, as it was ratified, was a good deal?
Yes, it was.
It was imperfect, but it was a good deal for that moment. I would have worked to get longer sunset periods, and that's something we could negotiate to get back in the deal. But the point is, Donald Trump told us when he got out of it that he was going to give us a better deal. Those were his words. And now we are a month away from the Iranians who claim now that they're going to blow the caps on enriching uranium. And the Iranians have told us this. And so that's where we are right now. He has made us less safe than we were when he became president. So what I would do is negotiate us back into that agreement, is stand with our allies and not give unlimited leverage to China and Russia, which is what he has done. And then, finally, I would make sure that if there is any possibility of a conflict, and we're having this debate in Congress right now, that he comes to Congress for an authorization of military force. I would do that. And this president is literally every single day 10 minutes away from going to war, one tweet away from going to war, and I don't think we should conduct foreign policy in our bathrobe at 5 in the morning.
Congresswoman Gabbard. You said you would sign back onto the 2015 deal. Would you insist, though, that it address Iran's support for Hezbollah?
Let's deal with the situation where we are, where this president and his chicken hawk cabinet have led us to the brink of war with Iran. I served in the war in Iraq at the height of the war in 2005, a war that took over 4,000 of my brothers and sisters in uniforms' lives. The American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. It would take many more lives. It would exacerbate the refugee crisis. And it wouldn't be just contained within Iran. This would turn into a regional war. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say, no war with Iran. We need to get back into the Iran nuclear agreement, and we need to negotiate how we can improve it. It was an imperfect deal. There are issues like their missile development that needs to be addressed. We can do both simultaneously to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon and preventing us from going to war.
Time is up. There's a very quick follow-up. But what would your red line be for military action against Iran?
Look, obviously, if there was an attack against our troops, then there would have to be a response. But my point is, and it's important for us to recognize this, is Donald Trump and his cabinet, Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, and others, are creating a situation that just a spark would light off a war with Iran, which is incredibly dangerous. That's why we need to de-escalate tensions. Trump needs to get back into the Iran nuclear deal and swallow his pride, put the American people first.
Hey, but wait a minute.
All right, we are out of time. We're up against a hard break, but we will have much more.
As soon as this blows up, we're going to war.
We'll continue our questioning next with Chuck Todd, Rachel Maddow. Stick around. We'll have a lot more with some very anxious candidates just ahead.
At least they gave her an important question.
I know. At least they let her talk about fucking Iran. I was hoping they'd actually.
Of all the things, I'm glad that they gave her Iran.
All eyes on the 2020 election.
Because I think
continue to follow the latest on the candidates.
We're at a point where the immigration issue is being blown out of proportion. A lot of the problems that exist now existed during Obama's time. They just didn't have camera crews going down to the border filming the camps. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't act surprised as the United States. Like, you can't just destabilize a bunch of middle American countries and then not expect a bunch of refugees to start knocking at your border. But at the same time, it's not like the issue's not being dealt with. Yeah, more could be done. That's absolutely true. And getting a Democratic leader will definitely be the first step into getting something done about that. But still, people are being sold a bill of lies on exactly what the nature of the immigrant crisis is and how bad it is and how much worse it is now than it was before and whose fault that it is.
Look at this guy. He acts like a weather dude.
Put together, and what you see here in this trend line, it's a very narrow
range that Trump is operating in. What I
why.
mean by that is, look at this. This is his high watermark, his peak as president. His average approval rating at its best, 46%. When was this?
Like, I
Only
can
in
see
February
there's
2017.
three
That was his honeymoon.
graphics.
He had
Literally
just become
three
president.
graphics
that
on the
makes him
screen. He has
different
to
right
point
there
to it,
from
so
every
we know
modern
which one it
predecessor
is.
he has, because all of them have gotten to 60, 65, 70%. At least for a short period. They all had honeymoons. Trump's honeymoon, he couldn't even crack 50%. So already we see a lower ceiling for Trump than we've seen with past presidents.
So
But
like,
that comes with a flip side.
middle
And that is the
America
basement
voting
for
in
Look
Trump
at this,
was sort of just a
37%
message,
is the
you know,
low
like
point he's hit in his
people,
average approval
voters
rating
feel
as
like they have
president.
so little
That is
control
actually
as
not
it
as
is,
low
and a lot of
as
people
some
were
of his
voting Trump
predecessors
to
have gone.
like
We've seen
send a message
Nixon,
like, hey, you guys
Bush
need to
Senior, Carter.
fucking
We
fix
saw
your
them
shit.
fall into the
So, like,
20s at some
okay,
point
if
during
that
their
was
term.
at least
That is
what the
not
point
happening
of
to Trump
voting
either.
in Trump is,
37
and
on
these
the
people
low
were
end,
right,
46 on
then
the high
okay,
end. Right
message
now,
received.
somewhere in
Can we
between.
move on
It's a
now
very narrow range. It
and
speaks to
stop
polarization. I'll
letting
tell you, it speaks
Christian
to something else.
fundamentalists
Is this
run amok
presidency
in
really any
a
different
fucking secular
politically in
country
terms of
again,
how it's being received than the
You know,
campaign
Alabama just
in
passed
2016?
a
Because compare
law allowing religious church-based police
Yes.
forces, and there's this one particular police force that's going to be formed in a black majority town. It's a 2 to 1 black to white population, but the church that's starting its own police force is the main white church in town.
Hilarious.
And
Scary, but
secular
okay.
talk, Kyle Kaczynski, he's like, oh, this is going to be a religious police force.
Yeah.
And in a way it is. Like, what's going to stop some religious zealot taking the reins of the force and, like, enforcing religious laws? There's not, you know, they say that they needed this, they lobbied for this, they pushed for this because the church needs protection, so they need to create their own police force. But I would argue that it would cost less money to hire a security company to literally just run security.
Also, like you said, if a fucking mosque opened too,
Well, yeah,
they're
and then-
allowed to also have a police
Not that
force.
Alabama would ever allow a real
No,
mosque,
no,
but,
but, like,
but say again,
there's-
down the line, a mosque is allowed to open. Literally, they would open their own Sharia police force.
That's hilarious.
Like, logically, that's the only conclusion to that law. So, yeah, separation of police and state.
Yeah.
Please, no more Republicans. Stop voting in Republicans, people.
That's scary. Okay, so my takeaway is Elizabeth Warren is a really good speaker, and she like drives the people up, and she's basically like she's okay. She's trying.
She's the most experienced person on that stage, I would say.
Yeah.
With the clout. Like, she already is given tons of screen
Oh, here
time.
we go. Wait, Tulsi is really good, but she's not like we need to blah 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 blah. She's just like, guys,
She's a bit of a nub.
let's
so,
not blow
yeah.
each other up. Like, she's just very like just calm,
Mhm.
and I don't think that gets the people like fired up except me.
Wow.
So we.
She was also clearly a little nervous. She's choking on her words a little bit. But
I think she'll get
the
better.
points she's making, though, are very lucid points.
Here from 10 tonight, 10 more tomorrow. The breakdown for each night was selected at random. Now, the candidates will have 60 seconds to answer, 30 seconds for a follow-up if necessary, and we will be ruthless if necessary.
Oh.
Yeah, we can do that. By the way, hi, Rachel.
Hi, Chuck.
How you doing? Good. And we've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to be talking about guns and climate here up top. A whole lot more in this hour. Obviously, because of the size of the field, not every person will be able to weigh in on everything, but over the course of this next hour, we will hear from everyone. I promise everybody. And to begin with, we're going to go with guns. And Senator Warren, I want to start with you. We are less than 50 miles from Parkland, Florida, where 17 people were killed in a school shooting last year, and where there has been significant activism on gun violence ever since. Many of you are calling for a restoration of an assault weapons ban. But even if implemented, there will still be hundreds of millions of guns in this country. Should there be a role for the federal government? Everybody's mics are on.
Mike, did you hear
I
that?
think we have I heard that too. That's okay. I think we had a little mic issue in the back.
What they
Control room,
say?
we've got
We have
contrary
I think we
audio.
heard, we have the audience audio. All right.
Did
So the
the
question
audience
is
say
simply
anything?
this. We're from, I apologize you guys didn't get to hear this, the first part of the question. Obviously, we're not far from Parkland, Florida. Gun
What did they
activism has
say?
become
Did they say anything
a
like
big part of high school life up there in Broward
bad?
County. Many of you are calling for tighter gun restrictions. Some of you are calling for the restoration of the assault weapons ban.
But even if it's put in place, there's still going to be perhaps hundreds of millions of guns still on the streets. Is there a role for the federal government in order to play in order to get these guns off the streets?
You can hear people.
What's happening?
We are hearing our colleagues' audio. If the control room can turn off the mics.
Get your fucking shit together!
Yeah, if the control room can turn off the mics of our previous moderators, we will.
They mic'd people in the backstage and you can hear them. We prepared. I'll just get a binder.
Guess
real
what,
quick.
guys?
Like,
We are going to take a quick break. We're going to get this technical situation fixed. We will be right back.
Incompetent!
Oh my god.
It's just, it's an omen. It's a fucking omen.
Is it MSNBC?
Yes. That's what it is. It's an omen.
Fuck me.
We're cursed.
All eyes on the 2020 election. Continue to follow the
This
latest
is
on the
we're
candidates
cursed.
with
The
NBC
Democrats are
News
fucking
mobile app.
cursed.
At least Joe Biden was.
Breaking news, top
Boomers.
stories,
At least
live
nobody
video,
screwed with Joe
and
Biden.
all your favorite
Thank God.
NBC News shows.
Joe Biden, it's
Text
Joe Biden.
NBC
Hey, I'm Joe Biden.
Hey, I'm Joe
I'm Joe
Biden.
Biden. Hey, I'm Joe Biden.
Hey, I'm Obama's best friend. Vote for me.
Hey, remember back when Obama was elected? I was his vice president. Joe Biden, Joe Biden, I'm Joe Biden.
The place to start, obviously, is where the last election ended, 2016. And remember, of course, by the popular vote, Hillary Clinton had almost 3 million more of those than Donald Trump. We don't elect the president by national popular vote. We do it by the Electoral College. And there, Donald Trump had the right combination of votes in the right state.
This guy isn't funny. I'm sorry. He's not funny. Okay, anyway. So, of course, there's a technical difficulty when, you know, Joe Biden is on stage. So, you know there's not going to be no technical difficulties tomorrow, but here we go. Clearly these issues are Orange Man's fault. That's what somebody said. Yeah, probably. Shoe0nhead Yang's Twitter commentary is hilarious. Amazing. Everyone just sounds like they're trying to be Bernie. Am I wrong? Because, like, Bernie was saying all this shit last year, and he was, like, the only one? Last year. What is time? 2016. He was saying all of this shit, and, like, these weren't popular talking points. And then, all of a sudden, like, everyone is like, yeah, the corporations suck. Yeah, big money. Yeah, taxing the rich higher. Yeah, minimum wage. Yeah, healthcare. And these were all things that, like, were kind of just Bernie's thing. Do you notice? Do you know what I'm talking about? And then all of a sudden, all these guys are like, me too. Amazing. Someone just screams in the audience, "You're breathtaking!" The Burninator just influenced everyone, I swear to God. What is Weather Guy doing? I really do not care about Weather Guy. Alright. Keanu Reeves 2020. Are they still, like, is there still an audio issue? Can you guys go back and see what the audience was or the people backstage were talking about? All I heard was, "I'll grab a binder." Could you imagine if it was like, could you imagine the mics backstage were just like, you censored those videos, right? You got the Google search censored. That'd be fucking hilarious. You censored Tim Pool, right? All right, good. We got it.
A little bit. Senator Warren, we're going to get to the gun question here. Parkland, Florida, it's just north of here in Broward County. As you know, it has created a lot of teenage activism on the gun issue. It has inspired a lot of you to come out with more robust plans to deal with guns, including assault weapons ban. But even if you're able to implement that, what do you do about the hundreds of millions of guns already out there? And does the federal government have to play a role in dealing with it?
So, in this period of time that I've been running for president, I've had more than 100 town halls. I've taken more than 2,000 unfiltered questions. And the single hardest question I've gotten, I got one from a little boy and I got one from a little girl. And that is to say, when you're president, how are you going to keep us safe? That's our responsibility as adults. 7 children will die today from gun violence, children and teenagers. And they won't just die in mass shootings. They'll die on sidewalks, they'll die in playgrounds, they'll die in people's backyards. Gun violence is a national health emergency in this country, and we need to treat it like that.
This bitch, she knows how to
We can do the
fucking
things
talk.
that are sensible. We can do the universal background checks. We can ban the weapons of war. But we can also double down on the research and find out what really works, where it is that we can make the differences at the margins that will keep our children safe. We need to treat this like the
Thank you,
virus
Senator Warren.
that's killing our children.
You didn't address, do you think the federal
That's a
government
good
needs
point.
to go and figure out a way to get the guns that are already out there?
What
Even
I
if-
think we need to do
Very
is we need to treat it like a serious research problem, which we have not done. You know, guns in the hands of a collector who's had them for decades, who's never fired them, who takes safety
Right.
seriously, that's very different from guns that are sold and turned over quickly. We can't treat this as an across-the-board problem. We have to treat it like a public health emergency. That means bring data to bear, and it means make real change in this country,
Thank you,
whether it's politically popular or not.
Senator Booker, you have a
We need
program.
to fight for our children.
Senator Booker, you have a federal government buyback program in your plan. How is that going to work?
Well, first of all, I want to say my colleague and I both have been hearing this on the campaign trail. But what's even worse is I hear gunshots in my neighborhood. I think I'm the only one, I hope I'm the only one on this panel here that had 7 people shot in their neighborhood just last week. Someone I knew, Shahad Smith, was killed with an assault rifle at the top of my block last year. For millions of Americans, this is not a policy issue. This is an urgency. And for those who have not been directly affected, they're tired of living in a country where their kids go to school to learn about reading, writing, and arithmetic, and how to deal with an active shooter in their school. This is something that I'm tired of, and I'm tired of hearing people, all they have to offer is thoughts and prayers. In my faith, people say faith without works is dead. So we will find a way. But the reason we have a problem right now is we've let the corporate gun lobby frame this debate. It is time that we have bold actions and a bold agenda. I will get that done as President of the United States because this is not about policy, this is personal.
Thank you, Senator Booker.
Secretary Castro, I'd like to talk to you about something that Senator Booker just mentioned there, the idea of active shooter drills in schools.
Someone was just like in the chat, where's this man looking for Cory Booker? And you made me laugh during a very serious portion of the debate, so fuck you.
As their kids go off to school, that their kids will be caught up in something like this. Next to nothing has changed in federal law that might affect the prevalence of school shootings. Is this a problem that is going to continue to get worse over our lifetimes? Or is there something that you would do as president that you really think would turn it around?
Yeah, Rachel, I'm the dad of a 10-year-old girl, Karina, who's here tonight. And the worst thing is knowing that your child might be worried about what could happen at school, a place that's supposed to be safe. The answer to your question is no, we don't have to accept that. And I believe that on January 20th, 2021, at 12:01 p.m., we're going to have a Democratic president, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate.
Hopefully. But I doubt.
The activists of Parkland, folks from Moms Demand, who have risen up across the United States and inspired so many people You know, we may not have seen yet legislative action, but we're getting closer. The House took a vote. In the Senate, the question often is if the decision is between 60 votes, a filibuster, or passing common sense gun reform, I'm going to choose common sense gun reform. So I believe that we're going to be able to get that done in 2021.
Secretary Castro, thank you.
Rachel, I have something to add to this briefly.
We'll give you 30 seconds for follow-up on that question, on that answer from Secretary Castro. Congressman Ryan.
You're talking about in the schools. These kids are traumatized. I support all the gun reforms here. We need to start dealing with the trauma that our kids have. We need trauma-based care in every school. We need social and emotional learning in every school. 90% of the shooters who do school shootings come from the school they're in, and 73% of them feel shamed, traumatized, or bullied.
Oh! Wait, no. He had a good point. Don't freeze.
We need to make sure that these kids feel connected to the school. That means a mental health counselor in every single school in the United States. We need to start playing offense. If our kids are so traumatized that they're getting a gun and going into our schools, we're doing something wrong too, and we need reform around trauma-based care.
Congressman O'Rourke, you're a Texan who's campaigned all over the state in 2018 in the most conservative parts there. What do you tell a gun owner who may agree with you on everything else? Okay, but says, you know what, the Democrats, if I vote for them in there, they're going to take my gun away. And even though I agree with you on all these other issues, how do you have that conversation?
Here's how we had that conversation in Texas. I shared with them what I learned from those students who survived the Santa Fe High School shooting. A young student named Bree, her friend Marcel, who survived another shooting, the mother of a victim who lost her life, Rhonda Hart. They talked about universal background checks where you close every loophole. We know that they save lives. Talked about ending the sales of assault weapons into our communities. Those weapons of war were designed to kill people as effectively and as efficiently as possible. They should belong on the battlefield and not in our communities. Red flag laws, so that if someone poses a danger to themselves or to someone else, they're stopped before it's too late. And what I found in each one of those 254 counties is that Democrats and independents and Republicans, gun owners and non-gun owners alike agreed. But this effort must be led by the young people that you referenced at the beginning of this issue. Those students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas led the charge here in Florida, and they've been able to change those laws. They're making our democracy work, ensuring that our values and our interests and our priorities are reflected in the laws that we pass.
Thank you, Congressman O'Rourke. Hang on. Let me give 30 seconds. Senator Klobuchar, the Iron Range, I'm curious. Gun confiscation, right? If the government is buying back, how do you not have that conversation?
Well, that's not confiscation. You would give them the offer to buy back their gun. But I'll say this. I look at these proposals and I say, does this hurt my Uncle Dick in his deer stand, coming from a proud hunting and fishing state? These proposals don't do that. When I was a prosecutor, I supported the assault weapon ban. When I was in the Senate, I saw those moms from Sandy Hook come and try to advocate for change.
Does this hurt my dick?
And then now these Parkland kids from Florida, they started literally a national shift. You know why? It's just like with gay marriage. When kids talk to their parents and their grandparents, they say, I don't understand why we can't put these sensible things in place. Say, listen. And if we get bested by a bunch of 17-year-olds, it's the best thing that ever happened. We need to get
Senator Booker, let me go to you on another matter. Senator Mitch McConnell says that his most consequential achievement as Senate Majority Leader was preventing President Obama from filling a Supreme Court seat. Having served with Republicans on the Judiciary Committee, do you believe they would confirm your court nominees?
I'm going to use 20 of my seconds just to say there's one thing we don't all agree with when it comes to guns, and I think it's common sense, and over 70% of Americans agree with me. If you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to buy and own a firearm. And not everybody in this field agrees with that, but in states like Connecticut that did that, they saw 40% drops in gun violence and 15% drops in suicides. We need to start having bold agendas on guns. When it comes to the Supreme Court, very clearly, I agree with my friend, Secretary Castro, we are going to get to 50 votes in the Senate. This is a team sport. Whoever is our nominee needs to campaign in places like South Carolina because we can elect Jamie Harrison. They need to campaign in places like Iowa because we can win a Senate seat there. This is about getting us back to having 50 votes in the Senate and more so that we can not only balance the Supreme Court, but start to pass an aggressive agenda that, frankly, isn't so aggressive because most of America agrees with the policy objectives
Not in every
of our
state.
party.
Oh, okay. Yeah, every state should have a
We have to actually.
Congressman Delaney, you'll have some time in a moment on this
issue
issue.
is related to
Congressman
the other
Delaney, I'll give you some
as well.
time in a moment. Mayor de Blasio, as an executive in the largest city in this country, you are used to saying what you want to have happen and having it happen. If you nominate a Supreme Court nominee as President of the United States and Mitch McConnell is still Senate Majority Leader, what makes you believe that he would allow you to make a nominee?
Rachel, I am chief executive of the nation's largest city, and I also want to just say something quick on the gun issue and come to your question. Look, I run the largest police force in America, too, and if we're going to stop these shootings, we're going to get these guns off the street, we have to have a very different relationship between our police and our community. I also want to say there's something that sets me apart from all my colleagues running in this race, and that is for the last 21 years, I've been raising a black son in America. And I have had to have very, very serious talks with my son Dante about how to protect himself on the streets of our city and all over this country, including how to deal with the fact that he has to take special caution because there have been too many tragedies between our young men and our police, too, as we saw recently in Indiana. So we need to have a different conversation in this country about guns, but also a different conversation about policing that brings police and community together. We've done that in New York City, and we've driven down crime while we've done it. But to your question about Mitch McConnell, there's a political solution that we have to come to grips with. If the Democratic Party would stop acting like the party of the elites and be the party of working people again and go into states, including red states, to convince people we're on their side, we can put pressure on their senators to actually have to vote for the nominees that are put forward. Decent journalists deserve that right.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio.
Senator Warren, I'm going to get you. I will get you 30 seconds. I promise. Let me get this question. We're trying. I know you guys. We got other issues we're trying to get to, including a big one coming up in a minute. But Senator Warren, I want to continue on the Mitch McConnell thing because you have a lot of ambitious plans. You have a plan for that. Okay. We talked about the Supreme Court. Do you have a plan to deal with Mitch McConnell if you don't beat him in the Senate? If he's still sitting there as the Senate Majority Leader, it's very plausible you be elected president with a Republican Senate. Do you have a plan to deal with Mitch McConnell?
I do.
That's it. I do.
We are a democracy. And the way a democracy is supposed to work is the will of the people matters. Now, we for far too long have had a Congress in Washington that has just completely dismissed.
They really just clapped at her saying I do
across this country. They have made this country work much better for those who can make giant contributions, made it work better for those who hire armies of lobbyists and lawyers, and not made it work for the people. Well, here's how I see this happening. Number one, sure, I want to see us get a Democratic majority in the Senate. But short of a Democratic majority in the Senate, you better understand the fight still goes on. It starts in the White House, and it means that everybody we energize in 2020 stays on the front lines come January 2021. We have to push from the outside, have leadership from the inside, and make this Congress reflect the will of the people.
I'm going to get a couple of you in here. I'm going to get you a couple in here. 30 seconds. Congressman Delaney, you seem to believe you can do everything in a bipartisan manner. Mitch McConnell doesn't operate that way. He operates differently. Why do you think he is going to conform to your style?
I think we need to get things done. That's why I believe we need to operate in a bipartisan manner. Listen, I'll sign into law bills that come to the White House that are passed on a party line basis, absolutely. But all the big transformative things we've ever done in this country's history have happened when huge majorities of the American people get behind them, which is why we need real solutions, not impossible promises. We need to put forth ideas that work, whether it's on health care, creating universal health care so that every American gets health care, but not running on making private insurance illegal. The gun issue is related. The gun safety issue is related because I can't tell you how many times I've been with folks in Western Maryland, and they've said to me, You know, Democrats don't do anything for us. Republicans don't do anything for us. You fight all the time, so they vote on that single issue.
Okay,
if we
thank you,
become the
Congressman.
party of getting things done for the American people
Senator
with real
Booker,
solutions, not impossible promises, we'll be able to get all
I
these
promise
things
two
done.
30s here. I'm going to say, Senator Booker, 30 seconds. How do you deal with Mitch McConnell? You've been in the Senate. You can't get bills on the floor right now with Mitch McConnell. Presidents can't do it. Is President Booker going to get his bills on the floor with Senator McConnell?
You know, when I got to the United States Senate, going back to what de Blasio said, as an African-American man in an African-American dominated community, I knew one of the biggest issues was criminal justice reform. From police accountability to dealing with the fact that we have a nation that has more African-Americans under criminal supervision than all the slaves in 1850. And when I got to the Senate, people told me we could not get a comprehensive criminal justice reform bill done. As my colleagues in the Senate know, I fought on that bill from the day I got to the Senate, built coalitions across the aisle, and today we passed the First Step Act. It's not as far as I want to go, but thousands of people will be liberated. I've taken on tough problems people said we cannot achieve, and I've been able to get things accomplished.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Rachel's got the next question.
We are going, hold on,
Going
Governor,
next, please.
you're going to be happy with where we go. Governor Inslee,
Just
this next
give us a
question
second.
is to you. You got me? You got me? You have staked your candidacy on the issue of climate change. It is first, second, and third priority for you. You said it's all the issues. Let's get specific. We're here in Miami, which is already experiencing serious flooding on sunny days as a result of sea level rise. Parts of Miami Beach and the Keys could be underwater in our lifetimes. Does your plan save Miami?
Yes, first by taking away the filibuster from Mitch McConnell to start with. We have to do that. Look at. We are the first generation to feel the sting of climate change, and we are the last that can do something about it. Our towns are burning, our fields are flooding, Miami is inundated. And we have to understand this is a climate crisis, an emergency, and it is our last chance in the administration, next one, to do something about it. And we need to do what I've done in my state. We've passed a 100% clean electrical grid bill. We now have a vision statement, and my plan has been called the gold standard of putting people to work. But the most important thing on this, and the biggest decision for the American public is, who is going to make this the first priority? And I am the candidate and the only one who's saying this has to be the top priority of the United States, the organizing principle to mobilize
You monitor for a little while. I just gotta edit something on your computer. I have to mod one of the people.
The future and put 8 million people to work. That's what we're going to do.
Congressman O'Rourke, you've also put out a big climate change plan from your campaign. You want some big changes in a pretty short period of time, including switching to renewable energy, pushing to replace gas-powered cars in favor of electric ones. What's your message to a voter who supports the overall goal of what you're trying to do, but suddenly feels as if government's telling them how to live and ordering them how to live? What is that balance like?
Yeah, you don't have an
I think you've got to bring everybody in to the decisions and the solutions to the challenges that we face. That's why we're traveling everywhere, listening to everyone. We were in Pacific Junction, a town that had never meaningfully flooded before, just up against the Missouri River in Iowa. And every home in that community had flooded. There were farms just outside of Pacific Junction that were effectively lakes. Those farmers already underwater in debt. Their markets closed to them by a trade war under this administration. And now they don't know what to do. We in our administration are going to fund resiliency in those communities, in Miami, in Houston, Texas, those places that are on the front lines of climate change today. We're going to mobilize $5 trillion in this economy over the next 10 years. We're going to free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuels, and we're going to put farmers and ranchers in the driver's seat. Renewable and sustainable agriculture to make sure that we capture more carbon out of the air and keep more of it in the soil, paying farmers for the environmental services that they want to provide. If all of us does all that we can, then we're going to be able to keep this planet from warming. Another 2 degrees Celsius and ensure that we match what this country can do and live up to our promise and our
climate
potential.
change. 30 seconds, Secretary Castro. Who pays for the mitigation to climate, whether it's building seawalls, for people that are perhaps living in places that they shouldn't be living? Is this a federal government issue that needs to do that? Do they have to move these people? What do you do about that where maybe they're building a house someplace that isn't safe? Who pays to build that house? And how much should the government be bailing them out?
Well, I don't think that represents the vast majority of the issue. In fact, my first visit after I announced my candidacy wasn't to Iowa or New Hampshire. It was to San Juan, Puerto Rico. Because people should know that if I'm elected president, everybody will count. And, I'm one of the few candidates in this race with executive experience, with a track record of getting things done. When I was mayor of San Antonio, we moved our local public utility. We began to shift it from coal-fired plants to solar and other renewables, and also created more than 800 jobs doing that. And when I was HUD secretary, we worked on the National Disaster Resilience Competition to invest in communities that were trying to rebuild from natural disasters in a sustainable way. That's the way that we're going to help make sure that we're all safer in the years to come and that we combat climate change. And if I'm elected president, the first thing that I would do, like Senator Klobuchar said, is sign an executive order recommitting us to the Paris Climate Accord so that we leave it.
Congressman Ryan, I got a full question for you here, which is simply this. There are a lot of the climate plans include pricing carbon.
They all
Taxing
pretty much
carbon in some
agree
way.
on,
This type of proposal has been tried in a few places, whether it's Washington State, where voters voted it down. You've had the yellow vest movement. We had in Australia one party get rejected out of fear of the cost of climate change sort of being put on the backs of the consumer. If pricing carbon is just politically impossible, how do we pay for climate mitigation?
Well, there's a variety of different ways to pay. We talk about different ways of raising revenue, and I think we've got to build our way out of this and grow our way out of it. But let me just talk real quick to the previous question about real politics. We could talk about climate, we could talk about guns, we could talk about all of these issues that we all care about. We have a perception problem with the Democratic Party. We are not connecting to the working class people in the very states that I represent, in Ohio, in the industrial Midwest. We've lost all connection. That we have got to change the center of gravity of the Democratic Party from being coastal and elitist and Ivy League, which is the perception, to somebody from the forgotten communities that have been left behind for the last 30 years, to get those workers back on our side so we can say we're going to build electric vehicles, we're going to build solar panels. But if you want to beat Mitch McConnell, this better be a working class party if you want to go into Kentucky and take his rear end out. And if you want to take Lindsey Graham out, you got to have a blue collar party that can go into the textile communities in South Carolina. So all I'm saying here.
Thank you, Congressman.
All I'm saying here.
Thank you, Congressman Ryan.
The only way to implement electric cars now is to
with our connection to workers, white, black, brown, gay, straight, working class people, none of this is going to get done, Chuck.
Thank you very much. We're going to keep moving. Congressman Delaney, I'm going to get to you.
I introduced the only bipartisan carbon tax bill in Congress.
All right. 30 seconds, go.
All the economists agree that a carbon pricing mechanism works. You just have to do it right. You can't put a price on carbon, raise energy prices, and not give the money back to the American people. My proposal, which is put a price on
I
carbon,
was the one.
I was the
first one.
I
am the only. I was the first one that didn't want to go to war.
With a coalition of every Democrat in the Congress and the Republicans who live in coastal states. As Republicans in Florida, they actually care about this issue. This has got to be our way forward if we're actually serious about this issue.
Congresswoman Gabbard, we're going to move here. One of the first things you did after launching your campaign was to issue an apology to the LGBTQ community about your past stances and statements on gay rights. After the Trump administration's rollbacks of civil rights protections for many in that community, why should voters in that community, or voters that care about this issue in general, trust you now?
No, this
Let
is a
me
good
say
question.
that there is no one in our government at any level who has the right to tell any American who they should be allowed to love or who they should be allowed to marry. My record in Congress for over 6 years shows my commitment to fighting for LGBTQ equality. I serve on the Equality Caucus and recently voted for passage of the Equality Act. Maybe many people in this country can relate to the fact that I grew up in a socially conservative home, held views when I was very young that I no longer hold today. I've served with LGBTQ service members, both in training and deployed downrange. I know that they would give their life for me, and I would give my life for them. It is this commitment that I'll carry through as President of the United States, recognizing that there are still people who are facing discrimination in the workplace, still people who are unable to find a home for their families. It is this kind of discrimination that we need to address.
But it's not enough. It's
Thank
not
you,
enough. If I
Congresswoman.
can add to this, it's very important.
30
because
seconds,
This is not
Senator.
enough.
No.
Civil rights is
This is
someplace to
good, though.
begin.
I mean, it's
From
good
the
that
African American
even though
civil
she's
rights
not
community,
talking a lot,
another
every
place to
time
focus
they
on was
set her
stop
up,
the
she
lynching of
felt
African
and
Americans.
punches it.
We
So-
do not talk enough about trans Americans, especially African American trans Americans.
Wait,
and
why
the
specifically
incredibly high
African
rates of
American?
murder right
I
now.
think that
we don't
if
talk
we
enough
talk
about
now-
children.
because they
About
get-
30% of LGBTQ kids who
Oh,
do
okay.
not go
Well,
to
within-
school because
okay,
of fear.
well,
It's not enough
okay.
just to be on the
Okay, I mean,
Equality
that-
Act.
I'm
I'm
just
an
saying
original
that-
co-sponsor.
I'd say
We
more
need to
than
have
ever,
a
we're talking
president
about
that
it
will
now more
fight
than ever.
to protect LGBTQ Americans every single
See,
day from violence.
everyone's so much more.
No, me. No, my
The
thing.
issue of civil rights for
No,
decades.
I care more about
on the
this
issue of
than
civil
her.
rights and demographics, honestly, and politics. For decades, the Democratic Party has counted on African American voter turnout as step
she
one
literally got to say
winning
that she would
elections on a
fucking die
national
for these
level.
people.
Democrats are counting
None
on the
of these
Latino
other
community
people have ever been
now
in a
and the
position
future
where they
in the
can
same
even
way.
say that.
What have you
She was
done
given the power
for
move.
Black and Latino voters that should enthuse them about going to the polls for you if you're your party's nominee?
My life and my career and my work in the Senate has been about economic opportunity. And to me, this means better child care for everyone.
I like
in
how
this
they
country.
right out the bat
And
were
when
like,
you
"Hey,
wanna
Tulsi,
have an
remember when you
economy that
hated
works,
gay people?
You need to have
Hey!"
that works. You need to have public
Wow,
schools
like the
that
first
work.
time she speaks
And
in
you
2
also need
hours.
to make
Remember when
sure
you fucking
that-
hated the
that
gays?
Those communities are
Remember
able
when
to
you were
get those
20 years
jobs of the
old?
future, the
And it was like
STEM jobs. In fact,
2004,
Donald Trump, one
and
of the
Hillary
first
and
bills
Obama
that
the
he
same
signed,
year
of the
hated the
34
gays?
he signed,
Remember
where I
when
was
you
the lead
did?
Democrat. Okay, that's a first up here.
Oh.
Was one that was about that, making sure minority community members could share in those jobs. So to me, this is about a few things. It's about an African American woman that goes to a hospital in New Orleans, says her hands are swollen, and then doctor ignores her and her baby dies. It's about the fact that African American women make 61 cents for every dollar a white man makes. So in short, we need to, one, and I will do this in my first 100 days as president, we will work to make sure everyone can vote at this table. Everyone can vote in this country. And we will also go to the next step of criminal justice reform. Senator Booker and I worked on that First Step Act, but we should go to the Second Step Act, which is to help all our communities across.
Senator, thank you very much. 30-second follow-up to you. Secretary Castro, this is a 70% Latino city here in Miami. You are the only Latino Democrat who is running this year in the presidential race.
Why are they like hyping everyone else up?
An answer.
And they're just
Senator
like, "Yo,
Klobuchar
Tulsi,
is
you already
describing
hated the
economic
gays."
justice agenda. Is
Oh, I
that enough
can't.
to mobilize Latino voters to stand with the Democratic Party in a big way?
Well, I also think that we have to recognize racial and social justice. And, you know, I was in Charleston not too long ago, and I remembered that Dylan Roof went to the Mother Emanuel AME Church, and he murdered 9 people who were worshiping, and then he was apprehended by police without incident. Well, but what about Eric Garner and Tamir Rice?
Hey, Julian,
and
remember that
Claude
you're Latino?
McDonald and Sandra Bland and Pamela Turner and Antonio Arce. I'm proud that I'm the only candidate so far that has put forward legislation that would reform our policing system in America and make sure that no matter what the color of your skin is, that you're treated the same, including Latinos who are mistreated too oftentimes by police.
Secretary Castro, thank you.
Let me go over to Lester Holt, who's got a question, I believe, a viewer question.
I'm over here, Chuck.
Where are you
Thanks.
here? All
We
right.
ask voters from across the country to submit their questions to the candidates. Let me read one now. This comes from John in New York, who submitted this question. He asks, does the United States have a responsibility to protect in the case of genocide or crimes against humanity? Do we have a responsibility to intervene to protect people threatened by their governments, even when atrocities do
Give
not
this one to
affect
Tulsi.
American core interests? I'd like to direct that question to Congressman O'Rourke.
John, I appreciate the question. The answer is yes, but that action should
No,
always be
we don't have
undertaken
to be
with
world
allies
police.
and partners
No.
and friends. When the United States presents a united
We-
front, we have a much better chance of achieving
We
our foreign
always
policy
make it
aims
worse.
and
Like
preventing the kind of genocide
99.9% of
to
the
which you
time.
refer, the kind of genocide that we saw
We
in
make that
Rwanda,
shit
the kind of
worse.
genocide we want to stop going forward. But unfortunately, under this administration, President Trump has alienated our allies and our friends and our alliances. He's diminished our standing in the world, and he's made us weaker as a country, less able to confront challenges, whether it's Iran or North Korea or Vladimir Putin in Russia, who attacked and invaded our democracy in 2016, and who President Trump has offered another invitation to do the same. He's embraced strongmen and dictators at the expense of the great democracies. As president, I will make sure that we live our values in our foreign policy. I will ensure that we strengthen those alliances and partnerships and friendships and meet any challenge that we face together. That makes America stronger.
What about the War Powers Act? What about the War Powers Act being a part of that equation? With deep respect to the congressman, look, we've learned of painful lessons as Americans. That we've gone to war without congressional authorization. Look, this is very personal for me. I know the cost of war. My dad served in the Pacific in World War II in the U.S. Army. Battle of Okinawa, had half his leg blown off, and he came home with scars, both physical and emotional, and he did not recover. He spiraled downward, and he ultimately took his own life. And that battle didn't kill him, but that war did. And look, even in the humanitarian crisis, and I think we should be ready, Congressman, to intervene. God forbid there is a genocide, but not without congressional approval. As far as I know, there's only
Democrats
and
one war
Republicans,
vet
both in the Congress, have not challenged presidents and have let them get away with running the military without the congressional approval. We learned a lesson in Vietnam we seem to have forgotten. And the decisions have to be made by the United States Congress.
I want to pick up this point, and I want to put this to Congressman Ryan. Today, the Taliban claimed responsibility for killing 2 American service members in Afghanistan. Leaders as disparate as President Obama and President Trump have both said that they want to end U.S. involvement in Afghanistan. But it isn't over for America. Why isn't it over? Why can't presidents of very different parties and very different temperaments get us out of there? And how could you
ask the war vet?
I appreciate that question. So I've been in Congress 17 years, and 12 of those years I've sat on the Armed Services Committee, either the Defense Appropriations Committee or the Armed Services Committee. And the lesson that I've learned over the years is that you have to stay engaged in these situations. Nobody likes it. It's long. It's tedious. But right now we have, so I would say we must be engaged in this. We must have our State Department engaged. We must have our military engaged to the extent they need to be. But the reality of it is this president doesn't even have people appointed in the State Department to deal with these things, whether we're talking about Central America, whether we're talking about Iran, whether we're talking about Afghanistan. We've got to be completely engaged. And here's why. Because these flare-ups distract us from the real problems in the country. If getting drones shot down for $130 million because the president is distracted, that's $130 million that we could be spending in places like Youngstown, Ohio, or Flint, Michigan, or rebuilding.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds, actually, to jump off what he said. He described engagement as the problem.
You will tell the parents of those 2 soldiers who were just killed in Afghanistan? Well, we just have to be engaged. As a soldier, I will tell you that answer is unacceptable. We have to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. We are in a place in Afghanistan where we have lost so many lives. We've spent so much money, money that's coming out of every one of our pockets, money that should be going into communities here at home, meeting the needs of the people here at home. We are no better off in Afghanistan today than we were when this war began. This is why it's so important to have a president and commander-in-chief who knows the cost of war and who's ready to do the job on day one. I am ready to do that job when I walk into the Oval Office. Thank you very much.
Listen, I'm going to go down the line. I'm going to go down the line here. Well, you know what? You felt like she was responding. You get 30 seconds. Go.
Good man.
Fair enough.
Appreciate that.
I hear what you're saying.
I would just say I don't want to be engaged. I wish we were spending all this money in places that I represented that have been completely forgotten and we were rebuilding. But the reality of it is, if the United States isn't engaged, the Taliban will grow, and they will have bigger, bolder terrorist acts. We have got to have some present there.
The Taliban was there long before we came in. They'll be there long before we leave.
Well,
we cannot keep U.S. troops deployed to Afghanistan thinking that we're going to somehow squash this Taliban that has been there, that every other country that's tried has failed.
I didn't say squash them. When we weren't in there, they started flying planes into our buildings. So I'm just saying right now,
the Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. Al-Qaeda did.
Well, I understand.
Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11.
I understand.
That's why I and so many other people joined the military to go after Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban.
The Taliban was protecting those people who were plotting against us. All I'm saying is,
Oh
if we want to go into elections and we want to say that we got to withdraw from the world, that's what President Trump is saying. We can't. I would love for us to.
Protecting Al Qaeda right now in Saudi Arabia.
I want to go down the line here, finish up foreign policy. It's a simple question. What is the biggest threat to who is the geopolitical threat to the United States? Just give me one word answer, Congressman Delaney.
Could you repeat the question?
Greatest geopolitical threat to the United States right now, Congressman Delaney?
Well, the biggest geopolitical challenge is China, but the biggest geopolitical threat remains nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Right? So those are different questions.
Totally get it. Go ahead, Governor Inslee.
The biggest threat to the security of the United States is Donald Trump, and there's no question.
Oh my! Are you fucking kidding me? Tulsi's like, are you kidding
The
me?
greatest threat that we face is the fact that we are at a greater risk of nuclear war today than ever before in history.
Senator
Two
Klobuchar.
threats: economic threat, China, but our major threat right now is what's going on in the Mideast with Iran. If we don't get our
try to keep it
act together.
slimmer than what we've been going here. One or two words.
Our existential threat is climate change. We have to confront it before it's too late.
Senator Warner.
Climate change.
Yeah, Senator Booker.
Nuclear proliferation and climate change.
Did that dude really just say fucking
China
Trump?
and climate change. Congressman Ryan.
China, without a question, they're wiping us around the world economically.
And Mr. Mayor.
They're white.
Russia, because they're trying to undermine our democracy, and they've been doing a pretty damn good job of it. We need to stop them.
All right. Well.
Oh my God, are they fucking kidding me?
That wide variety of answers, and I mean that. No, I mean that in a. That's what this debate is about. This is the best part of a debate like this. Congressman O'Rourke. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report outlines multiple instances of potential criminal behavior by President Trump. House Speaker Pelosi has publicly and privately resisted any move toward impeachment in the House.
I love America.
If the House
America
chooses not
is
to
the
impeach,
best comedy.
as president, would you do anything to address the potential crimes that were outlined in Mr. Mueller's report?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
How, by the way, if the answer is yes?
One of the most powerful pieces of art in the United States Capitol is the Trumbull painting of General George Washington resigning his commission to the Continental Congress, at the height of his power, submitting to the rule of law and the will of people. That has withstood the test of time for the last 243 years. If we set another precedent now, that a candidate who invited the participation of a foreign power, a president who sought to obstruct the investigation into the invasion of our democracy, if we allow him to get away with this with complete impunity, then we will have set a new standard. And that is that some people, because of the position of power and public trust that they hold, are above the law. And we cannot allow that to stand. So we must begin impeachment now so that we have the facts and the truth, and we follow them as far as they go and as high up as they reach, and we save this democracy. And if we've not been able to do that in this year or the year that follows, and under my administration, our Department of Justice will pursue these facts and ensure that there are consequences, there is accountability, and there is justice. It's the only way that we save this country.
Thank you, Congressman O'Rourke.
Yeah. In an election speech.
Because of the accountability issues
His
that Congressman O'Rourke was just
election-
describing there, and the
His
real
election
political,
platform is we should impeach the
landscape in which
president.
Nancy Pelosi
That's
is saying
beautiful.
that impeachment
That's
will not be
beautiful.
pursued in the House.
And redundant.
It raises the prospect, and the Mueller report raises the prospect that President Trump could be prosecuted for some of those potential crimes down the line. No U.S. president has ever been prosecuted for crimes after leaving office. Do you believe that President Trump could or should be the first?
I guess there's always a first.
Should he be?
I don't think anyone's above the law. I don't think anyone is above the law, including a president. I support Speaker Pelosi's decisions that she's making in the House of Representatives right now. As Speaker, I think she knows more about the decision as to whether to impeach the president than any of the 2020 candidates combined.
Conceded.
So, but I do think that no one's above the law, and this president, who is lawless, should not be above the law. But I will tell you, Rachel, the one thing when you're out doing as much campaigning as I've done, 400 events, all 99 counties in Iowa, this is not the number one issue the American people ask us about. It's not. They want to know what we're going to do for health care, how we're going to lower pharmaceutical prices, how we're going to build infrastructure, what we're going to do to create jobs in their communities. You know, last year in our country, 80% of the money for startup businesses
We started
went
out
to
with Orange
50
Man bad, but he
counties in
pivoted.
this country. There's over 3,000 counties in this country. That's what they care about. They care about what's going on in the public schools. They care about what's going on with jobs in their communities, with their pay, with their health care. with infrastructure. These are the issues. These kind of kitchen table, pocketbook issues are actually what most Americans care about. They never ask about the
Congressman, thank you. Your time is up.
They never ask about it. They want to know how we're going to solve these problems.
Here's the thing. I still, Senator, we got.
If we let the Republicans run our elections,
We got to.
and if we do not do something about Russian interference in the election, and we let Mitch McConnell stop all the backup paper ballots, then we're not going to get what we want.
All right,
I
got to sneak in, but we blew through a break, which is good news to give you more time. So I got to sneak one in now. More of this debate. It's picking up here. It continues right after this.
All right. So I was a little worried of Tulsi. She was pretty quiet. They weren't giving her any time at all. They literally skipped over her in the gun debate issue. Completely forgot all about her. But she came out just all guns blazing and just blew the neo-lib boomer out the water. That was hilarious. So that was cool to see. That was cool to see her, like, actually stand up and be like, but you're wrong, retard. So that was, like, neat. This, like, they're basically all, besides the war thing, they were pretty much all in sort of agreement on most issues. So, thank you for the pizza, babe.
You're welcome.
I got pizza. I should probably read Super Chats soon. Oh, it's almost over. Okay, I'll read Super Chats at the end. So send your Super Chats and I shall read them when the debate is over.
What was Tulsi's Big Bang moment?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Basically, one guy's like,
you know, like, when fucking Iraq, like, invaded us, blah, blah,
and Tulsi's just like, that never happened, that was Al-Qaeda. Or whatever. I can't, I paraphrased, but I'll show you. It was funny. Show us Ali. Can you get me Ali? Thank you. The people want to see the vice president. Bring the vice president Oliver out. He accused the Taliban. Yes, sorry, that was it. Taliban. That was stupid. He said the Taliban took down the Twin Towers. I can't believe that one guy I don't know their names, they all look the same to me. That one guy, what's the biggest threat? Donald Trump. Fuck, really? The healthcare crisis, global warming, getting close to nuclear war, and you pick fucking Donald Trump? That was the biggest orange man ban I've ever seen, ever.
I'm a little nervous. Got carried really far away.
You got carried a big far away.
Okay.
Up. Is it back on? Oh, I don't know. This is Oliver, if you don't know. He's my little bunny. Oh, we're back. We're back, Ollie. We're back.
We are back from Miami, and it's time now for closing statements. Each candidate has 45 seconds. We want to begin with former Congressman Delaney.
Closing now?
Closing.
Okay, 45 seconds.
we could go on.
Together we are on a mission. We're on a mission to find the America that's been lost. Lost through infighting, lost through inaction. We're so much better than this. We're a country that used to do things. We saved the world. We created the American dream for millions of people like myself.
Oh, no.
The grandson of immigrants, the son of a union electrician who went on to become a successful business leader and create thousands of jobs. But we did these things with real solutions, not with impossible promises. And those are the roots that we have to get back to. I'm running for president to solve these problems, to build infrastructure, to fix our broken healthcare system, to invest in communities that have been left behind, to improve public education. I just don't want to be your president to be your president.
45
I want
seconds
to
over.
be your president to do the job.
Thank you,
This is
sir.
not about me. This is about getting America working again.
Thank you.
Great slogan. Get America working again.
Mayor, your closing statement.
It matters. It matters in this fight for the heart and soul of our party that we nominate a candidate who has seen the face of poverty and didn't just talk about it, but gave people $15 minimum wage. It matters that we nominate a candidate who saw the destruction wrought by a broken healthcare system and gave people universal health care. It matters that we choose someone who saw the wasted potential of our children denied pre-K and gave it to every single one of them for free. These things really matter. And these are the things that I've done in New York, and I want to do the same for this whole country. Because putting working people first, it matters. We need to be that party again. Let's work together. With your help, we can put working people first again in America.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. Right on time.
Governor Inslee, 45 seconds.
Trinity and I have 3 grandchildren. We love them all. And when I was thinking about whether to run for president, I made a decision. I decided that on my last day on earth, I wanted to look them in the eye and tell them I did everything humanly possible to protect them from the ravages of the climate crisis. And I know to a moral certainty, if we do not have the next president who commits to this as the top priority, it won't get done. And I am the only candidate, frankly, I'm surprised. I'm the only candidate who's made this commitment to make it the top priority. If you join me in that recognition of how important this is, we can have a unified national mission. We can save ourselves. We can save our children. We can save our grandchildren. And we can save literally the life on this planet. This is our moment.
Governor, thank you.
Congressman Ryan, you're 45 seconds.
There's nothing worse than not being heard. Nothing worse than not being seen. And I know that because I've represented for 17 years in Congress a forgotten community. They've tried to divide us, who's white, who's black, who's gay, who's straight, who's a man, who's a woman.
They were about the
And they ran away with all the gold because they divided the working class.
Not very inclusive.
It's time for us to come together. I don't know how you feel, but I'm ready to play some offense. I come from the middle of industrial America, but these problems are all over our country. There's a tent city in LA. There's homeless people and people around our country who can't afford a home. It's time for us to get back on track. The teacher in Texas, the nurse in New Hampshire, the waitress in Wisconsin, all of us coming together, playing offense with an agenda that lifts everybody up. I will only promise you one thing. When I walk into that Oval Office every morning, you will not be forgotten. Your voice will be heard. Thank you.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you have 45 seconds for your closing. You know, our nation was founded on the principles of service above self. People who fled kings who literally prospered on the backs and the sacrifices of people. Coming here to this country, instead putting in place a government that is of, by, and for the people. But that's not what we have. Instead, we have a government that is of, by, and for the rich and powerful. This must end. As president, our White House will be a beacon of light, providing hope and opportunity, ushering in a new century where every single person will be able to get the health care they need, where we will have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink, where we will have good paying jobs in a new green economy. Join me in ushering in this new century with peace, prosperity, opportunity, and justice for all. Congresswoman, thank you.
Oh, someone whooped! Someone whooped!
Me llamo Julián Castro y estoy postulando por presidente de los Estados Unidos. The very fact that I can say that tonight shows the progress that we have made in this country.
I don't
like
know what
many of
you
you, I
said,
know the
though.
promise of America. My grandmother came here when she was 7 years old as an immigrant from Mexico. And just 2 generations later, one of her grandsons is serving in the United States Congress, and the other one is running for president of the United States. If I'm elected president, I will work hard every single day so that you and your family can get good health care, your child can get a good education, and that you can have good job opportunities, whether you live in a big city or a small town. And on January 20th, 2021, we'll say adios to Donald Trump.
Senator Klobuchar, the floor is yours.
3 things to know about me. First, I listen to people, and that's how I get things done. That is my focus. I have a track record of passing over 100 bills where I'm the lead Democrat, and that is because I listened and I acted. And I think that's important in a president. Everything else just melts away. Secondly, I'm someone that can win and beat Donald Trump. I have won every place, every race, and every time. I have won in the reddest of districts, ones that Donald Trump won by over 20 points. I can win in states like Wisconsin and Iowa and in Michigan. And finally, yes, I am not the establishment party candidate. I've got respect, but I'm not that person. I am the one that doesn't have a political machine that doesn't come from money. And I don't make all the promises that everyone up here makes, but I can promise you this.
I won so many
with
things.
Integrity. I'm going to have your back, and I'm going to govern for you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senador Booker, sus 45 segundos.
Gracias. 50 years ago this month, my family moved into the town I grew up in because after being denied a house because of the color of their skin, it was activists, mostly white activists, that stood up and fought for them. That's the best of who we are as America. Why, when I got out of law school, I moved into the inner city of Newark to fight as a tenant lawyer for other people's rights. I've taken on bullies and beat them. I've taken on tough fights, and we've won. And we win those fights not by showing the worst of who we are, but rising to who's best. Donald Trump wants us to fight him on his turf and his terms. We will beat him. I will beat him by calling this country to a sense of common purpose again. This is a referendum on him and getting rid of him, but it's also a referendum on us, who we are and who we must be to each other. It's time we win this election, and the way I'll govern is by showing the best of who we are, because that's what this country needs and deserves. Thank you.
Congressman O'Rourke, 45 seconds. Our daughter Molly turned 11 this week.
My daughter, my son.
I'm on this stage for her, for children across this country, including some her same age who've been separated from their parents and are sleeping on concrete floors under aluminum blankets tonight. If we're going to be there for them, if we're going to confront the challenges that we face, we can't return to the same old approach. We're going to need a new kind of politics, one directed by the urgency of the next generation. Those climate activists who are fighting not just for their future, but for everyone's. Those students marching not just for their lives, but for all of ours. We'll need a movement like the one that we led in Texas. It renewed our democracy by bringing everyone in and writing nobody off. That's how we beat
taxing
Donald Trump.
people if
That's how
they
we bring
don't
this
have
great
anyone
country
in the
together
military
again.
in their
Join
families.
us. This
Right,
is
Beto?
our moment, and the generations that follow are counting on us to meet it.
Thank you, Congressman.
Senator Warren, you have 45 seconds.
Of course
for
they
the
give
final
Warren the
statement
last
of the
one.
evening.
Thank you.
Is she
It's a
the
great
last?
honor to be here. Never in a million years did I think I would stand on a stage like this. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I have 3 older brothers. They all joined the military. I had a dream growing up, and my dream was to be a public school teacher. By the time I graduated from high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less a chance for me to go to college. But I got my chance. It was a $50 a semester commuter college.
Oh, I thought she was
That
going to say she
a
didn't go to
little slice of
college. I was
government
like,
that created
oh,
some
represent.
opportunity for a girl, and it opened my life. I am in this fight because I believe that we can make our government, we can make our economy, we can make
Why
our
did you
country
fake
work,
being a
not
Native
just
American,
for those at
though,
the top.
Elizabeth?
We can
Please.
make it work for everyone, and
Why
I
did that
promise
happen?
you this. I will fight for you as hard as I fight for my own family.
We would like to thank all of the candidates who participated with us tonight, and that will do it for